Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And man, I got a very cool guest with us today. Excellent guitarist who's definitely been around the world literally several times and has had a great career with Gerry Leonard. A couple of quick announcements. I want to thank our mutual friend Mark Platty for connecting us. Second, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the audio and video. And if you're watching us already on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell down there. All right, let me tell you about Gerry. Very smart guy, really, really beautiful player. Originally from Dublin, he is a guitarist, songwriter, and producer now based in New York City. He played on David Bowie's records, Heathen, Reality, and The Next Day, where he also has 2 co-writes with David on that last record. He toured with David on the Heathen and Reality tours and was musical director for the Reality tour and the DVD. As a session player, he's worked with Suzanne Vega, Rufus Wainwright, Duncan Sheik, Avril Lavigne, Roger Glover, Sophie B, Hawkins, Chris Botti. Did you work with Reggie Hamilton? Was he the bass player with Chris?
Not at that time.
Not at that time. Laurie Anderson and others. He's also the music director on tour with Suzanne Vega, and Gerry also co-wrote all the songs on Suzanne's Tales from the Realm of the Queen of Pentacles album. And he's also toured with Rufus Wainwright and Duncan Sheik. He's also scored and played on films, including a Roger Waters score for the film The Last Mimzy, and under the name Spooky Ghost. Write that down, Spooky Ghost, because, man, you need to, wherever you listen to music or buy music, you need to get it right now. Gerry's got 3 albums. The first album was actually recorded in his East Village apartment years ago in 1998. It's a wonderful record, man. It's like if you listen to it, it could be the soundtrack of your life for a day, the soundtrack of any movie. It's very cool music. He has another Ghost Story album that was released as a soundtrack to the movie. Is it Gala's Story? Is that the way to pronounce it?
Gala's Story. Yeah. It was a little movie made by my friend. Yeah.
Gala's Story. And he has a 3rd record called The Light Machine as well under, again, Spooky Ghost. So definitely check out Spooky Ghost. Man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
It's a pleasure, Craig. It's lovely to be here.
Likewise, man. So before we dig in, man, I was really excited, as I was just saying about, I think I texted you, man, when I started listening to the Spooky Ghost stuff. I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. I never know.
Liked it.
Yeah, I loved it, man. I listened to it multiple times. It was like very calming, relaxing, but it wasn't like, it was calming, but it got you pumped up at the same time, which was what I really liked.
There was a manager friend of mine at the time when I was kind of bringing that stuff out. He called it ambient aggressive.
Yeah. Perfect, man. But aggressive in a good, like sometimes ambient music, you listen to it to fall asleep.
Yeah.
This is extremely melodic. It's really powerful. The melodies are great, really strong. And I wanted to ask you, my comment is it's like a soundtrack to life. That's what I like about it. You could, you can sit on the bench in Washington Square Park and have that playing and just turn around in various places and see fit different things going on to whatever's playing at the time.
It's beautiful when music does that. It kind of takes on a narrative to a particular landscape, and especially these days. I mean, we take it so much for granted. But I was talking to my daughter about the first Sony Walkman that I ever saw. Which was back in probably 1980 or something like that, because Ireland had won the Eurovision Song Contest, and that songwriter guy who I knew he was 2 holes in his shoes. He'd not 2 pennies to rub together, but then they hit it big, he came in with the Walkman. He was like, check this out. That kind of immersive thing, which we take for granted now. But, to have the headphones in and have the music going, and then it's you and the visual of the world. And it's a beautiful thing.
It really is, man. I got goosebumps just talking about it. That's how much I like the records. It was really great stuff. Haunting at times, but really beautiful.
I was going through I have to say, a very particular, it was a very particular time in my life, actually kind of one of the dips, and we have hills and valleys. It was one of the dips. I was in New York, which was great. It was where I wanted to be, but I was also realizing how tough New York really was, and how, it's a great city, It's a fantastic city, but it's you got to pick yourself up by your bootstraps, whatever. But anyway, all of that was going on, and this
on
was
a daily basis, actually.
on a daily basis, yeah. And this music was, it was just kind of like it was me in that little place. It was creating a world. But I also was listening to a lot of music that I, I guess I think I have an emotional connection with music. It's always been there, but the idea that music is a, it's almost like it can be like incense in a room. Like it can kind of come in and permeate and lift up without being really obvious, so that's what I was kind of going for. And sonically, it's a little more transparent and stuff,
Whatever you were going for, you hit your goal and exceeded it, as far as I'm concerned. It's great stuff. No, man, it's really good. I'm not just saying it. I would say nothing. Where did the name Spooky Ghost? I never ask about names, but it's something about this. I get the sense that this is a thing for you, man. So I have to ask you, what is Spooky Ghost? Where did it come from? What does it mean?
Yeah. Well, that name was conjured up by my partner. So going back a minute before I came to New York, I was in Dublin, and I finally got signed to Island Records, and I teamed up with this guy Donald Coughlin. And we'd both been through the Dublin band kind of grinder, band after band after band. The drummer leaves, drummer leaves, whatever it was. And we were so done with bands, and we teamed up together as songwriters, and we made our demos, demos pretty much that sounded like the record, and got signed. Chris Blackwell came over and signed us and everything, and that was great.
Dude, how exciting is that?
It was really exciting
time. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a validation and a sense of feeling that you were arriving or whatever. But when we would work together, that was his nickname for my guitar playing style. He was like, do that Spooky Ghost thing. And so, yeah,
it's
because
very
it's kind of
appropriate.
more ambient thing. Yeah, it was like my friend Donald, he was very much like that. He would just come out with these phrases, and it stuck. And then when I was in New York and I started to work as, or try to work as what we call a sideman, I guess, here.
Sure.
It was like the next phase after being in bands. You never stop writing. And so when I was writing and looking for, the name Spooky Ghost just kind of popped up almost simultaneously. And it just seemed like, yeah, it's a great image and whatever.
Awesome, man. Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
On the second record, I know you had Jay Bellerose and Paul Bryan, but I also know you're a multi-instrumentalist. So what other instruments did you play on the records? And also, is that you singing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a very
great.
I can say reticent singer, but sometimes singer. And so when I started writing songs for that first Spooky Ghost record, there's a couple of songs on there, and it was like I felt so exposed. I can't tell you. I mean, it was terrifying, even to just sing and to try and formulate a song and a couple of verses. I mean, I struggled with that, and but I did it because I felt like it. I needed to try it, and actually, I had a friend in Laurie Anderson at that time as well, and I played on a couple of her records, on the Bright Red record, and she's such a great person, and she would invite me down. She's like, "What are you doing? Come down, help me with blah blah blah," and I'd go down and hang out, and I'd play her these little work in progress things, and she'd be like, "It's fantastic, Gerry. It just needs words," and I was like, I don't have anything to say. And she's like, "Gerry, I think you've a lot to say." She was really like my mentor.
That's really cool. Like
support like that. One day she said, "Look, here's how we do it." Like she pulled down all these poetry books and she started, "You like this line, let's make a song." And she made a song with me as a kind of like slap over the head to kind of go, "Dude, get over yourself.
This is easier than you think."
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, you need to start and you need to kind of get out of your own way, which is a constant lesson, right, as a musician.
I think in life in general, to be honest with you, getting out of your own way is a lesson that comes up.
And then I think by the time the Light Machine record came around, I was more in the flow with that, of writing and writing songs. I was also playing a lot with Duncan Sheik at the time, and he was super supportive. You know, I was playing on all of his records at the time, and we shared this love of the band Talk Talk, especially the Spirit of Eden records, and you got to hear Spirit of Eden.
Talk, Spirit of Eden.
Blow your mind. Talk, yeah.
Okay.
Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock was the other one. These kind of records, I mean, you'll immediately hear the influence on the Light Machine. That's kind of more open, all done in a room, live recording and stuff. So I started writing more then, and I'm 50-50. I think melodic pieces are also important for me. I enjoy that thing. I enjoy the guitar as the vehicle for those kind of things too. Not in a kind of like soloistic, like here's the chords and here's the lead. You know,
no,
it's more like
it's beautiful.
A parts thing. You know,
it's very melodic. I think that's what I was so drawn to it. It was real. That's what I liked about it. It was the thing that ambient music often lacks is doesn't really take you on a journey because it's just there, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But what appeals to me more is when something takes me on a journey, and that's what I found. What I like most about spooky ghost stuff.
Yeah.
It's very melodic.
Yeah, I was listening to a lot of Indian classical music at the time too. I was really taken with that, and the skill of improvising for like 20 minutes that they do. They take a theme, but the idea that the music arises from the drone, so that the as opposed to the music arriving from silence, the music is coming from the drone, so that you establish the kind of raga, the harmonic drone, which I tend to do a lot with my ambient loops, like try and make it so that it's a percolating kind of embracing thing, and then the music can come out of that tonality, or maybe go against it and form a contrast or something like that. So that's that's an influence in there.
What else did you play music instrument wise on some of this stuff? Like besides guitar?
There might be a little mandolin stuff in there. I mean, I play a little bit of piano, but I gave it up when I was a kid, so I can play, and I love the piano visually. I even started taking lessons again, but I realized it's a monster of an instrument, so I enjoy it. But I love finding the harmony on the piano, and going between the piano and the guitar is really interesting. Like if you take guitar voicings and put them on the piano, or vice versa, it's really interesting because it kind of like, it's not the way you would think on that instrument. But if you have, I mean, if the voicings are good, they'll work on any combination of instruments, so.
It's funny that you mentioned the droning, because my final question on that was, you have some very cool droning there, and some of it sounds Gaelic, and some of it, as you said, skews towards Indian or maybe even a little Middle Eastern. What about that is appeals to you most? Because you really leverage that extremely well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It just seems to fit. It seems like. So when I came to New York, I started to play as a guitar player. I really wanted to try and do a lot of this ambient stuff, like live on the spot. That was one thing that was a challenge. And over the years, we've all worked with samplers and pre-recorded things with clicks and whatnots. And that's kind of great. You do it in your studio, you play it in a room. It sounds great in one room. It doesn't sound so good in the other room. And everybody's always fighting over, like, turn that level down or whatever. But to actually create it live in the room spontaneously in front of the people makes it really relevant to that particular occasion. And that's what live music is about. So the drone to me is like it's like the prelude. It's kind of like the prelude, or it's like the tambura. It's like the thing that kind of sets the scene for something to happen. And it kind of has this uniting quality about it, because it makes me feel more comfortable and at home. And I think it settles the audience as well.
Yeah.
And I think we respond, we respond to music in various ways, but one way that we do is the resonance of it. Not to get too heady with it, but I think emotionally we respond to these kind of drone-like textures. So drone can sound like, oh, he's droning on, but at the same time, like if it's kind of a vibration that connects, and it allows the music to come out of it. I don't know, it's just something that started to work for me, and it's a nice way for me to accompany myself, without having something that's really, like, if it's rhythmic and if it's melodic and it's repeating, it starts to kind of like really draw your attention there. Whereas
Definitely.
a drone is something that you kind of start to forget that it's there. But if you took it away, you'd be like, oh, what happened?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Because it's like an anchor.
Yeah. It's like you fell down the elevator shaft, like, a couple of stories. If it goes away, you put it in and it kind of props everything up. So I don't know, it just kind of happened that way, I tend to do it a lot.
Yeah, and it sounds great. And it's nice because it's it's truly a unique thing that you got going. Not a lot.
The other thing about the guitar is a sound as the originate, like the guitar, stringed instruments in general, to originate the sound, because there's so much harmonic information in there, and the way we can use the guitar in different ways, like with a swell or something like that, so there's no attack. It starts to become. It's a really interesting sound source. Like, I know you could have the same thing with a keyboard, but it takes up so much space. But the guitars, I get back to that thing of being a little transparent. It has a transparency in it. It's not so heavy that it takes up all the space. It actually leaves room for other things to breathe in there,
Hey, what clubs did you do this? So did you play this out solo in the city at all?
I used to play down in Sinead.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of Sinead. It was a little club, Irish club, coffee shop. When I first moved to New York, it was going around the early 90s, and it was basically a coffee house, and then people would pull back the chairs and people would perform. Jeff Buckley came up there, and it was really like, it became this really hipster place, and so many of these cafes sprung from that model, but I used to go there. That's where I would play, and that became the living room.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the living room kind of became Rockwood or whatever. So that's
Rockwell. Is it Rockwood? Yeah. Rockwood Music Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got 2 or 3 really nice stages there, and that's been a good home for me recently. So that's what I generally play in New York. It's like 60 people. We'll stuff it, but that's enough. And it's kind of like, it's my sandbox. It's where I can go and try new things. I try and bring a new composition when I do a show. I talk to the audience, they talk to me. Some people know the stuff, some people are there for the first time.
Sure.
And I'll play old stuff, I'll play new stuff. And it's just like, it gives me a chance to play the way that I want to play, which I don't always get to do when I work with other artists, because when I work with other artists, I'm trying to shoehorn my thing into their thing.
Right. Yeah. Man, I would love to see you play there at Rockwood. Do you ever see, I'll tell you a guy who plays there all the time, is, if you don't know him, Jim Campolongo?
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Love him. Yeah. Love him.
Player, man.
Love him. Yeah.
Really interesting player.
Beautiful.
All right. So if Wikipedia is correct, it said that one of your first jobs was working as a tape operator in a Dublin studio where you got to see Sinead O'Connor when you were 16. Sinead O'Connor, U2, and Phil Lynott working in the studio.
Yeah.
What is a tape operator? And it sounds like something ancient. And,
it is. I mean, officially, a tape operator was in the days when you didn't have like remote controls and stuff. You sat by the multi-track machine, and the engineer or producer would bark orders that you go to. You'd have a little sheet of paper, and you'd have like verse starts at 1 minute 32 and chorus starts at 2 minutes 36 or whatever, and you could dial those in on this little thing on the Studer, and you'd go there, and you'd also arm the tracks and sometimes drop. If they trusted you, you would punch in and punch out. So you're the tape operator.
Literally.
But you know, that was the official title, and that was the kind of like, job description. But actually what you did was, you know, you made the tea, you set up for the session, you tore down for the session, you vacuumed, you were the runner.
Yeah.
You were the tape op. You were the, you know, go get strings, go get Chinese food at 11 p.m., which in Ireland, in Dublin at the time, that was a drive, you know.
Oh,
like
really?
Yeah, it wasn't like New York where you just kind of like call up, you know, you had to go there. Anyway, it was really fun.
Interesting.
What can I tell you? And to walk into this like Aladdin's cave, I mean, I had a little bit of equipment, like a Tamberg reel-to-reel, and my way of overdubbing was I had this pick that was pretty thick. I remember it was a rainbow colored pick, and I would put it over the erase head between the tape and the erase head. I would block the erase head, and then I would overdub by listening to, you know, basically re-recording over the, I mean, it was total caveman shit, but can I say shit?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Yeah.
It sounded really bad, but it was also like, it was amazing. I did my own version of like Hotel California or something, you know.
That's awesome, man.
So then to walk into a studio, and they had a 28 Helios console, a Studer 24 track with Dolby A, 2 Studer quarter-inch machines, Neumann 87s, KM84s, AKG 414s, all these classic microphones, and like, you know,
kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
did you like throw out all your big picks?
Yeah. You should have kept that pick.
Yeah.
And so then we'd do jingles in the morning, and then we'd have maybe show. So there was these things called show bands in Ireland, which are basically cover bands, but they would make records, and they'd come in the afternoon or whatever else would be going on. And then, but the greatest thing was the studio was generally free Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because all the musicians were working. They were all gigging. So we figured out this deal with the studio manager that we could get the studio for like £250 or £300 with a roll of tape that would be reused, a roll of 2-inch tape, and then we get all the local bands to do their demos. So the bands would come in, we'd get the studio,
and you'd charge them,
and then I'd be the engineer.
Oh, that's shit! That was pretty industrious.
Yeah. So then we engineered the sessions. So we'd work all week, and then we'd get the studio Friday night, and everybody bring in the gear and the girlfriends and whatever, and then we'd be there till like Monday morning at 6 a.m. when we'd be frantic. Everybody'd be hands on the board mixing. You know, we'd do 3 songs or whatever, and that's how we used to spend our weekends.
That's awesome, man. What a did you did you actually get to see Sinead O'Connor, you two, and Phil Lynott recording?
Yeah, not all together.
No, I know, obviously.
But yeah, so things would happen, you know, like for instance, we were doing a band, and I'm not sure if I was engineering, it might have been, or like Paul Thomas, for instance, who I took his job. He engineered all those U2 records.
Yeah, that's right.
With Steve Lillywhite. But he was like I took over from him because he moved down to Windmill Lane. It just opened, which was the other more international studio that happened in Dublin. But at the time, this place, Lombard Sound. Anyway, we would do the demos, and Edge came in to play, you know, some overdubs on a with this artist. They were all friends or whatever. And then I gave him a ride home afterwards. You know, he lived on the north side and I lived on the north side. So I had my little Morris Minor car, and we drove home. We chatted a bit or whatever. Next time I saw him I was playing with David, and we were at the Point Depot playing with Bowie, and he came backstage or whatever.
Do you remember that lift you gave him home?
Like, you know, I'm not sure we got to that bit. It was a little bit of a high-powered conversation going on.
Yeah.
You know? And I was just happy to be there.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, Sinead came in. I was working with a band called Into a Nua, and they were doing demos to try and pick a new singer. And Sinead was one of the people. And so Sinead came and sang 2 songs, and Leslie Dowdall came and sang 2 songs. I engineered the sessions. And they went with Leslie in the end, which is probably better because Sinead is so much, I mean, she had to be become Sinead. She wasn't going to be.
She's a force.
She would have chewed them up and spit them out. You know, this band, God bless them. And then Leonard came in and produced a band called Auto de Fe, and that I remember being on those sessions and like we did a lot of sessions, and a lot of it just sounded ho-hum or whatever, but he came in and worked with the band and worked with the arrangements and changed some stuff, and suddenly it started really sounded like a record, and I was like, whoa, what happened here? Like, this sounds like a real record, so that was a real education to see how if you spend time figuring out what are the right things and working on the right things and arrangement wise, how the same bunch of instruments can suddenly start turning into sounding like a record on the speakers. Like, so that was, there are little moments in time where you kind of go, wow, we can do this,
Did that set the stage for, like, did that sort of make this career and music thing real for you?
Well, it was all kind of part of the same thing for me at the time. I was dead keen on the guitar. I was learning as much as I could. I was fascinated with recording. I was 16, just leaving school, 16, 17 when I started in the studio. And, it was one of those things where, I went in, my dad knew this guy in his golf club. Golf clubs weren't fancy in Ireland. Everybody played golf,
Right.
But it was like, oh yeah, you can have an interview on Tuesday after school. So I go there, and the guy, Pat Murphy, who's kind of a curmudgeon, and he's kind of like,
oh my
what
God.
interview? There's no interview.
Is there any
and I was like,
name than Pat Murphy?
yeah. And he was a chromatic harmonica player from a show band, and he was so down on the music business. He was like, music business sucks. You don't want to be in the music business. Tried to talk me out of it. And I was like, no, I want to do it. And then he goes, then at the last minute, he goes, what are you doing tonight at 8:00? I was like, nothing. He says, come in. And you meet Paul and blah, blah, blah. So I started working part-time, and I was like, I'm ready to leave school. And everybody was like, no, stay in school. When you get out, finish school, you got your job. So that's what happened. And then I became full-time tape op. And, I just worked. Yeah, they were like, do it.
That's really nice.
And then, so I had my band, and I was studying classical guitar. So they were all going on at the same time. And
that's really like rich.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And then when you were 27, I read that you left Ireland and moved to Copenhagen. What prompted that move, and what did you do in Denmark?
Right. So a lot of our friends, who've gone to college and all that kind of thing, were kind of like, they would work the summer in Europe, to get some travel and the money, save some money kind of thing. And my language skills were still are pretty terrible. I can barely speak English. So,
man, I don't. You've been listening to the wrong person. That is not true.
So my friends were like, "Well, go to Copenhagen and speak English there, and you can get." And the minimum wage was high there.
Oh, okay.
So we were like, "Great!" And so the girls were chambermaids, and the guys washed dishes. They were or worked in Burger King. And so I had a job in Burger King, but I couldn't go in on the day. I was like, I can't do it. So I became a dishwasher. And then I plucked up the courage they had a walking street there that street musicians would play on. We call it busking.
Yeah.
And so I plucked up the courage to go out there with my classical guitar and I bought a little amplifier and a pickup, and I go out there and play classical guitar pieces, and I started earning money on the walking street. The first day I went down, I was so terrified. I walked around with my little chair and my guitar and amp, and I just got back on the bus and went home again. I was like, I can't do it. And then as soon as I started doing it, I realized nobody's really paying attention. You think people are, but they're not really. And then I had to try and make people pay attention. So I would play like Cavatina, the Deer Hunter, da 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 da, and I'd play that, and I'd play some, classical hits, and they would come and they'd give me money, and then I'd play something kind of more complicated and boring, and they'd all go away, and then I'd play my little routine again. That was my. So you learned.
That
was my shtick.
Yeah, but you learn early, you learn important lessons of how to attract people, how to keep their attention.
Yeah.
Pretty important,
I
man.
was reading that book by Eddie Izzard, who I love, and he talks a lot about going to the Fringe Festival and doing street theater, and how it really toughens you up and how you have to learn to do it. I'll tell you one thing. I've been playing for a while, but when I started doing playing on the walking street, I realized I had to project. I had to commit. That because sometimes when you're practicing and stuff, you're kind of like, well, there's nobody listening, or you can start and stop, or you can do whatever you want. But when you start to really like perform, then you have to take that seriously, and you can't stop. You know what I mean? You have to keep going, and you also have to make it project, and got to connect. It's something else that changes in you, and that happened. It was kind of an innocent thing, but it turned into one of those building blocks.
Yeah, for sure, man. It sounds great. And that's very hard work to do, man.
Yeah.
Busking is not, I mean, you got to be really.
Oh, you get everybody coming up to you with all kinds of people asking you directions in the middle of a piece.
Oh my, you got to have a short memory to be successful at that.
Yeah. The things people say, I mean, it's unbelievable,
People ask you directions in the middle of a piece.
Yeah. Like you're not doing anything.
It's almost like you're invisible. I mean, which doesn't really feel good when you're doing that. Especially, I'm sure when you first start and you need
questionable,
money.
Yeah, questionable audience response. Excuse me, is your bathroom around here?
Man. All right. So then, as you talked about, after that, you moved to the East Village in New York. What was the trigger that made you do that? And how did you get work once you got to the city? That is a real ballsy move.
Yeah.
Really is.
So the timeline, not that it really matters, but I was probably more 25 when I was in Copenhagen. Okay. I'd had a bunch of bands, and I took a break. I went there. I ended up kind of living there for almost a year, and it was good for me in a lot of ways. And I met Donald Coughlin.
Okay.
There. And Donald had moved there for similar reasons. And we moved back to Dublin, and we were both talking about getting something together again. And then, we started working together, and that's what became, we borrowed money from our family. We were, it was always like, I don't know if it's a Dublin thing, but like, it's always, you got to have some kind of plan, scheme, So we borrowed some money from our families.
No, I actually think that's smart. If someone says they had a plan before they did something when they're young, I think that's smart, because I certainly did nothing with plan.
It's like there's some kind of scheme going. So anyway, it was probably like $5,000 or something. Like, we bought a Yamaha RX-5, and we bought an emulator. Emacs had come out, and an Atari 1080 computer with Steinberg software, and we set ourselves up as a little studio. And my friend Paul Thomas had an 8-track, 16-track studio, so we took a room upstairs. Anyway, we were like a MIDI programming suite, and the idea was that we would have the gear for ourselves in the evenings, which is effectively kind of what happened. And we did all these demos, and we got signed by Island Records on the basis of the demos. They never saw us perform live. They'd come to this little room, and we would play them the demos, and they started freaking out. And then we wrote 3 more, and we were kind of on a roll, and they were like, okay, you got a record deal. And we were like, yes.
That's amazing.
Fame at last. So as part of that, I traveled to New York, for new music seminars and stuff like that. Remember those things that would go on?
Yes.
And as soon as I hit the streets of New York, I was like, I love this city. And
how is New York? Sorry. How is New York back then different from Dublin?
Well, Dublin's small scene, right? And if you've been there for as long as I had been at that time, which seemed like an eternity, you kind of know everybody, and everybody knows you. It's very hard to move either sideways or up or down. You move down, but whereas New York was full of possibility. That was the thing that really hit me. It was very open. And I did find that really in general about America, it was very empowering, because you were kind of as good as your last job. Whereas in Dublin, it was like, who the hell do you think you are? It's like they say about Irish people, Ireland, it's kind of like two things they hate: success and failure. You know,
I never heard that. That's great.
yeah. So if you're mediocre is fine, but success and failure. So,
That's
but in New York,
clever.
I found that people were open to whatever. So if you did something, if you wrote a poem and they liked it, you were a poet.
Yeah.
No, that happened to me. I was like, "You're a poet," and I was like, "No, I'm not a poet." So yeah, I found it welcoming. And then, reality sank in a little. I had to get a rent, get a place, and get some jobs. I did a lot of live sound because of my studio background. I did sound in Webster Hall. I did sound in Brownies. I do a little gig here and there. Eventually kind of found my foothold, but it took a while.
Did Donald move to New York with you as well?
Donald didn't. The band had broken up at that point. The band had kind of run its course. It was about 4 years. I was in my early 30s then, and it was like, we released one record. We almost made a second record. Record company got sold. It's the perfect arc.
The usual.
Yeah, I still have a leather jacket. That's about all I have from that whole experience. A couple of videos and a leather jacket that I bought in New York and down in Canal Street.
Down in the. It's funny what you said, because I think in general that is the thing I've come to appreciate about America in general, that you can start over any day and do anything you want, and nobody will blink an eye. It's just up to you. Are you willing to do it?
Yeah, it's very refreshing. It's definitely new world versus the old world. The old world is very steeped in hierarchy and tradition, and the newer world is kind of like, yeah, sure. I mean, obviously that comes with caveats in either way, because, what can I say? Well, that's maybe a longer subject, but
well, you have to be competent at what you're doing to succeed, but nobody, holds you back.
But to get the opportunity, and for also for people to have an appetite for what you do, like, there's a lot of support. I mean, if it was a food that you were making, for instance, and you make it and it's delicious, people are like, "This is delicious. Let's have more."
Right.
That's New York.
Right.
I want some too. Whereas in Dublin, it's kind of like, well, I don't know. I could do better.
Interesting. Yeah. Nobody really cares here.
But I mean, I love Ireland. I mean, and Ireland's been good. It's been very, very welcoming to me ever since. Now, when I go back, it's great, and that's fine. I did my time in Dublin, and I love Dublin. It's a bigger pond over here, and I got to meet these amazing people, and I've learned so much. I don't know. It feels like a really good thing for me. And I speak American now.
You do speak American. When you go back there, do they tell you that when you go back there?
They give me a terrible hard time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
When
they slag me.
When my daughter,
but they're just looking for.
When my daughter was just started talking, I could tell you my wife's from the UK, so her mom would talk to my daughter, and I remember her mom saying, "Oh my God, she has a terrible American accent."
Yeah.
Okay. She lives in America. Man, I want to talk about, I'm going to put some names up of artists you've worked for as a sideman. And if you could talk about, Gerry, how you got the gig and a cool or interesting story about working with them. I want to talk about David Bowie, but also somewhere in that, can you also share the Carnegie Hall Bowie phone call? It's a really nice story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the David thing came through Mark Platty, our good friend Mark, who's awesome. And I worked with Mark. Mark did some work. I was working with Duncan Sheik.
Right.
And Duncan had a track we had to do for a movie or something like that. And Mark came in and did a really great job on the track. I love Mark's mixes. They're so punchy. And I'm trying to think of the name of the song. It'll come to me. Anyway, that's where I met Mark. We did it in Looking Glass Studios, and then we became kind of fast friends. And we worked on a bunch of little projects that he was working on. We worked together on a few things. And then I was producing this little record in the B room in Looking Glass. It was kind of a real laborious process, and it was a fine example of a record. Sometimes you take work that, you know, it's not the greatest work as in terms of glory or whatever, but you know, it leads to other things. That's just
yeah.
And Mark was in the big room working on track with David, and he came down with a CDR and said, "Do you want to do an ambient guitar track on this?" Because he knew my style and he was looking for something, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." You know,
yeah. Who's gonna say no?
So he gave me the CD, and I went home, and I little flat in Greenpoint, Brooklyn at the time, and a little Pro Tools 001. And I remember loading it up, and there was the track. It's like a 2-mix stem of this Bowie song. And I'm like, okay. It's like 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, just do what you do. Like, I had to talk to myself. You know, I was like, just, yeah, it's David Bowie, but just, you know, what are you going to do? So I just like did what I thought I should do, my instincts. And I did a couple of guitar tracks, and I gave them back to Mark, and he folded them into the track, and word came down, David loves them. And I was like, can I meet him? And he said, sure, when he comes, he'll be back, you know. And then he was back. And then I remember walking into the main room and Looking Glass, and there's David, like, duh, almost like that Holy Grail, like the light shining from behind him or whatever. But big smile, charming as anything. I said something really stupid, you know, and left. You know, so that's how I met him. But he liked the track, and he got me into playing a bunch of other songs, and that's how we started to know each other. And then that was for the Toy record, which, you know, he eventually shelved and went off and made the Heathen record. And then he came back down to New York with that, and he got me into play on a couple of overdubs on that record. And then he said, apparently to Mark, he was like looking for a guitar player he was going to play Heathen live and Low record live.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, can Gerry rock? Apparently was what he said. And Mark's like, well, you should see for yourself. He's playing his Spooky Ghost thing on Thursday down in the living room. The living room. It's corner of Stanton and Allen, like a little 50-seater thing. So he came to the show. David came to the show.
Did you see him in the audience? Like, did you see him walk? Oh my God.
Yeah, he was yelling. He was heckling me.
That had to be nerve-wracking.
It was nerve-wracking as hell. Oh my God. And it's like one of those clubs in New York where, you know, we used to call them throw and go. You know, you get your slot between 8 and 9, and there's a band 7 to 8, and there's a band from 9 to 10. And, you know, all great musicians and everything. Yeah. But, you know, you trundle your stuff in through the chairs and everybody getting their drinks and coffees or whatever. You set up your stuff, and then you play for whatever, 40, 50 minutes, however long you didn't spend setting up, and then you leave. And that was our show. I did it with my friend Paul Bryan, bass player, and we used to run these Betty Boop cartoons in the background. That was our thing. And then we would do these kind of improvised Spooky Ghost stuff from the first record and some of the stuff that ended up on the second record. And David came to the show. Mark told me, he said, look, David's coming to the show, which freaked me out. But then at a certain point, I was like, look, what am I going to do? I just got to do the best I can. And, you know, I kind of banter with the audience a little bit in between. And David started heckling me, and it was really funny. And I have it on tape somewhere, I think. I should dig it out.
Dude, and, that'd be great to put on YouTube.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Something about priests. He loved slagging off the priests. We used to watch Father Ted and stuff. So
that's
anyway,
so funny.
David was there. And then after that, he said, do you want to do a tryout for the band? So that was the kind of trajectory of meeting him.
Was Slick out of the band then?
Slick Slick ended up doing that tour as well.
Oh, okay.
I think he was thinking about changing it up, but he ended up going with Slick as well.
Okay.
Because Slick does a very different thing than I do, and that was cool for me because I love doing certain things, but I'm not that kind of guitar player.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it, but it's not really my forte.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I had him on. He was like, I got fired so many times, and he kept taking me back.
Yeah.
So I was figuring it was one of those times or whatever.
Yeah.
A couple of things you mentioned, man. I want to just.
But you wanted me to tell a story about the Carnegie Hall.
The Carnegie Hall thing. That's a lovely story.
You know, I was working with him. I guess we'd done some stuff, and it was maybe coming up to the reality tour or something like that. But yeah, it was like a Tuesday. I came back and it was the phone rang and it was David. You know, he would call you very occasionally when he had something he wanted, and he's like, "Do you want to play Carnegie Hall with me on Saturday night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to play Carnegie Hall." And he says, "Okay, I want to do Loving the Alien, and I wanted to start on a C." And I was like, "Okay." And he says, "Rehearsals on Friday, if that's okay." I was like, "Yeah." And he clicked, and that was it. You know, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, this is great. This is terrifying. This is great." So I went and listened to Loving the Alien, and it's like super dense, like the arrangement, you know, because it's like, you know, it was the kitchen sink and the golf clubs and everything was in the mix. You know, it was like, ah. So I figured out this little melodic, like a little version that I could do with a simple loop, an acoustic guitar, because it was going to be Carnegie and it was going to be acoustic, and kind of worked. And then so I went to the rehearsal on the Friday, and we were there with Tony Visconti and a string section, and we did some stuff from Heathen, and I played on that. And then everybody left, and it was just me and David in the room. And he said, "Did you get a chance to look at the Loving the Alien?" And I was like, "Yeah, I had an idea, David." I was like, if I started with this loop, and I was like, ba, 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 and then I came in with the chords, and so I was kind of I thought I would like show him what I was thinking. So I played the loop, and I started playing the chords, and he started singing, and we just kept going, and we played the entire song, and we finished. And he goes, "That's great, Gerry. We'll do that tomorrow night." And he walked out of the room, and that was it. And the next thing we were on stage in Carnegie doing it. And actually somebody posted a YouTube, a cell phone thing of us, which was really, because I didn't have a recording of it or anything. And he loved it so much, we did it on the reality tour every night.
That's awesome.
It became like a real, he gave me, like he, on the DVD, he's like, maybe we should have always done the song this way kind of thing, which was really nice. But it was great. It was, you know, it's incredible to do just solo guitar and that voice, that David, and that song. You know, it was amazing.
What did you learn? What were some of the things that you learned from that experience of working with him? It could be about music, entertainment, anything.
You know, David he had this thing, certainly about performance. So as a performer, like I saw him one time, we did Top of the Pops, and he was singing, and his pack flew off. Like they were kind of jumping around doing something. So his ear pack just flew off and skidded across the stage, right? So now I know he's got nothing in his ears, right? And he kept going. He sang the whole thing. And the producers finished it, and they're like, "Mr. Bowie, is that okay? Would you like to do it again?" And he's like, "No, that's fine. Let's go on." Like, he wasn't fazed by it at all. Like the whole thing of the show must go on, or, you know, we were talking earlier about when you're performing, like you have to kind of like not stop. Like he was a steam train when it came to that. So like I learned, you know, all that fussing and kind of like, could I have more of this or more of that? My ears are not right, or the light's too bright, or whatever. It's kind of like, I mean, yes, he had a lot of standards, and he wanted things to be really excellent, and that's a work ethic for sure. But he didn't get stuck on stuff. And when it came to the show, he made the show happen. If we fucked up and it wasn't catastrophic, we kept going. If it was catastrophe, he would stop it and blame it on himself or whatever. He didn't point the finger or anything like that. You know, real generous spirit in that way. So I learned a lot about that, about just kind of like committing and doing it. Like, and you know, that's a huge lesson. Sounds like a simple one, but it's huge, because things are always going to go wrong live. You just don't know what's going to happen. You know, you can be standing there and suddenly fall over because things can, you know, all kinds of things happen when you know, when you're playing live. And then as an artist, you know, he'd a great work ethic and a sense of, you know, when he was working and creating, it was just like, let's do it until it's done, you know. And he didn't micromanage things. Like I learned early on that with Tony Visconti and David, that they'd have you go out and play. And I was used to kind of like, well, let me try something. And do we like it? Do we like this bit? Okay, let me do more of this and less of this. And, you know, you kind of evolve the part. With those guys, it was kind of like, you go out and play and they were like, that was great, come on in. And we're like, oh, wait, that wasn't it. But they didn't want to give you a second. They wanted fresh things. So I had to kind of like figure out that, you know, you kind of get it right first time, or at least really have your ideas solid, you know. I mean, if you could always, I mean, it wasn't that like they wouldn't let you do it again, but it was kind of like that was the way of working.
Yeah.
So there's a freshness to that as well. And you hear it on his recording. Look at Gene Genie, the mistake going into the first chorus that everybody knows, that everybody plays it. The big question is, do we play it or not? You know, we used to play the mistake live, you know, because everybody knows the record. So it's perfect, you know.
Thank you, man. That was really cool to hear that. You said a couple of things that I just wanted to point out because that was really impressive. When Platty first gave you the track and you're sitting home at the end of the day, 11 o'clock at night, listening to it, and you're like, holy shit, this is David Bowie. I thought it was really cool that this is what you said. You said, you talked to yourself and you said, look, man, just do what you do.
Yeah.
That's a lot of confidence that, you know, or not even confidence. I just really respect that. That's a very mature
blind faith.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what you need, right? Especially in the music business.
Yeah. Well, I think too, yeah, there's this thing that I feel like I talk about cultivating when I teach a little bit or whatever. Like, your ideas, they're the little acorn thing, but they're, you know, the smallest, tiniest of ideas sometimes is the grain of truth that you need to extrapolate into this grander thing. And if you don't respect that, and if you don't look out for that and nurture it, and I say look out for it, to notice it and to nurture it and then to grow it, then, you know, you'll quickly kind of get to that point where, like, I don't know what to do. So sometimes it's like the first thought, best thought. You have to kind of like give yourself the space where you turn off all that, like, oh, it's not good enough, or I don't know, because there's plenty of that, and you need to let the thing come up, that you truthfully respond to the music. So I think in that moment, what I was referring to is like, do what you do is kind of like, well, what would you do if it was Joe Blogg sent you a song, or Duncan sent me a song, or whatever? I do the same thing, which I listen to it. I kind of pick the spots that I think that need something or jump out to me, or I have a little flash of an idea, and then I try and grab those things and then go from there. So, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of credit.
You had faith in yourself. That was like, I give you a lot of credit for that. Not a lot of people. Lots of people, I think, would have reacted like freaked out, and you said, hey man, just do what you do.
Yeah, well, you know, you're in this weird universe, like of like it's 11 o'clock or 1 a.m. in Greenpoint, and everything's gone quiet, and it's just you and your little iMac or whatever, and the track, and you're trying to fit into the track. I mean, all of those things are difficult enough and, you know, beautiful, but it's kind of like it's there's no one around. There's no one around to say that's good or that's not good. So you've got to kind of like edit yourself.
Yeah, that was really good. And it was a similar sense of character that when you just did the similar sense of character when you did the acoustic thing. You didn't freak out. You said, oh man, here, let me give you what I have. What I'm saying is that I think it's difficult for a lot of people. It takes a long time, or it takes a special person early on to say, hey man, I'm going to give you what I have because I know it's genuine.
Yeah.
And not worry about, and not this is what was good. Now that I can articulate this properly, sorry. You weren't attached to the results.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know,
that's huge, man, because when you're not attached to results, like a 1,000,000-pound weight is lifted off your shoulders.
yeah, you have to take that out of the equation to a degree.
That's what was so impressive.
Kind of like touring, you know. It's kind of like, well, you know, this is what's supposed to happen, and X amount of things will happen. But yeah, taking that, you know, I mean, we can kill ourselves by end gaming, you know, and really, like the real beauty is when you listen back after all of those crucial decisions making and hours or whatever. Or you say you're recording on a track, you listen back and you go, wow, that sounds really good. Like, that's a great moment. But if you get to like that, I want it to sound great straight away, or, you know, like to be the finished thing. That's not how things come together. All great artists and all great songs, they all start with this, like, I have an idea, or there's a line, or this chord is nice with this chord. You know, all the songs that we love have started out that way, you know. And if you tried to get to the end before you're ready for it, you'd never begin, you know.
Yeah, but for me personally, I've only recently got to that point, or even got turned on to the concept of not, a buddy of mine calls it not being part of the results committee.
Yeah.
And you were not attached, you were not part of the results committee there. And that, I think that's why it was so pure and it worked.
Right.
You know, because like you said, sometimes when you're so attached to something, you're like, oh my God, you can kill yourself on it, you know. But if you just do it and do the best, and that's it. That's all you can control anyway. So what's the point of, you know?
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing too, because I'll sometimes I'd be critical of myself for a moment. Like when sometimes I'm sitting and I have a little idea and I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. And I throw it down, I've recorded, and I'm like, I'll get to it later. And I don't put any more work into it. Right. So then I come back to it and it's like, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not quite. And if I'd kind of like put it down and then kind of gone, okay, let me work on this a bit more. Like, let me just, like, what else could I do with this? And does it need another section? And what is that other section? And do it now. Like, that's the way David used to work. Like, when he came to my house and we wrote those songs together, he walked out with an arrangement and a la 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 melody. And, you know, it wasn't elaborate, but it was finished in the sense that it wasn't left unlaced and kind of like, yeah, I'll get to it later. So there's a little bit of like, you know, what is the, you know, that kind of Eastern idea of the lute string, not too tight, not too loose. You know, it's a fine line. Like you need to allow the ideas and pure and not end game it and be part of the results committee.
Yeah.
But you also need to be a little bit responsible to kind of like take it to the point where it's kind of like realized. You know what I mean? And not overworked. Like, for instance, I had the idea for the arrangement of Loving the Alien with David. And so when I started to play him the idea and he started to sing, I'd finished the idea. So I could keep going with him. If I hadn't done the next section, we would have got to a point and we would have fallen over. And then he'd be kind of like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to do it. So, you know, you need to kind of see it through as well. So you got to find a balance with that. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. Man, I would imagine when you're on that stage there at rehearsals with him and all of a sudden he starts singing that and he sings the whole, that had to be so incredibly feel good and rewarding to you.
It was amazing. It was amazing because it was the first time I'd heard him sing that song, and be like, we were in a little room in Looking Glass or something. So it was just you know, it was a very intimate setting, and I'm playing acoustic guitar and he starts singing it. And then we play through it and it's like, it's exact.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, that's what's going to be. And we both were kind of like, whoa, that was kind of great, you know?
Yeah, that's great, mate.
David's unsentimental, so he's kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know, see you tomorrow. But I was like, whoa.
That's the kind of, you leave that when you're like, hey, it's Miller time now, man. You earned your keep for the day doing something like that, having an experience like that.
Yeah.
Roger Glover, what'd you do with him?
Roger's sweet man. I did it. He was making a record, and a producer friend of mine, great engineer, Peter Dannenberg, I'd done a bunch of sessions with Peter, and Peter's, he's a lovely guy, and he's a fan of my guitar playing.
This is in the city as well?
Yeah, up in Mamaroneck,
okay.
New York. He had a studio called Acme Studios up there.
God, it's beautiful. Mamaroneck is gorgeous, man.
Yeah, I was right overlooking the marina there and everything. But anyway, really, really skilled engineer and good guy. So he knows Roger, and Roger was making the record, and I guess Peter said, hey, you should try getting Gerry up to play on some stuff. So I came up and brought my stuff, and I played on a bunch of tracks, just gave them overdubs, did my thing. They were looking for, they needed that other thing that they had plenty of, like more straight ahead guitar playing, and they wanted something else. So that's what I gave them. And he told me these great Ritchie Blackmore stories.
Oh my, any of them you could air?
Well, Ritchie, I mean, I don't think I'm telling anything out of school that say that Ritchie could be cantankerous.
That's what I hear.
You know the story about that they were in Japan and they'd set up, because Roger's the kind of guy in the band who he does all the catalog and he does the remixes, and he's like the dynamo, the engine room of stuff, and keeps the wheels on, tightens all the nuts. And Ritchie's the guy out there taking all the nuts off and rolling the wheels down the hill, So they had a 5-camera DVD shot set up for a show in Japan back in, when one of those things, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever. It wasn't like everybody's got a camera now, but whenever that was. And Ritchie was like, his nose was out of joint about this, maybe because he didn't get asked, or he wasn't the one that initiated or whatever, but they said they were playing like Highway Star, they're playing the intro, and Ritchie's supposed to come out and start the guitar, so they're playing it, and there's bass and the drums, and playing it, and they're playing it, and they're playing it, and it's going over and over, and no sign of Ritchie. He's got a fucking fire extinguisher in his hands, and he starts spraying the cameras with the fire extinguisher at the start of the show. They're all like looking at him going, what the hell are you doing, man? That was a good story.
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Steve Morse is like the most mellow. I had Steve on the show. He was like the totally opposite. He's so kind, so mellow, so nice, and so like, just easygoing, man.
Yeah. Well, this music business can make a mental person out of you. Dublin, you're mental.
Yeah.
It can make you crazy, because it's a very confusing message. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, or my friend Sterling Campbell, great, he's the drummer with David, the Bees and whatever. And he's like, being on the road, it's kind of like, you go on stage and it's, and then you go to your hotel room, it's like,
yeah.
And it's even that alone will make you crazy. Like, what's the real world here? Neither. Is the truth. Neither.
That's a really good thing you bring up. How do you sort of, you have to almost ignore both of them, but that's who you are and that's what you're doing. And you don't want to ignore your life. How do you mitigate that?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have a bulletproof way, but what I've learned over the years is it's similar to, like, say you work with an artist. You're not the artist. So you can work with an artist and you can be really close with the artist, and it's very intimate. Like if I'm doing Love and the Alien with David on the stage in Madison Square Gardens, that's an intimate moment between you and the artist. But you come off stage and it's not, that moment is gone, and that needs to be put over there. So I'm not David Bowie, and I never would be David Bowie. David Bowie's David Bowie. So, this the same thing with the shows. Like when you're there, your job is to be present and to like, I really feel like my job and is to be there to support the artist, and also, but also to integrate with the audience and to make something special happen for everybody, myself included. And then when that's done, and that's that bit done. Now I love it, but it's not something that it needs to be put in this little case and put away. And And then your survival for on the road is your own thing. I mean, what are you going to do? Stay in your hotel room? I like to get out and take a run, for instance, and have a walk around and find a good coffee place and get a sense of the outside. Because what I find is if I don't, I become agoraphobic. I just kind of go from hotel room to dressing room, and kind of not healthy.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So, you and then where are you in all that? Are you confident enough in yourself that you can, kind of be your own person and exist, go into those situations and come out of them again? I don't know.
You have a pretty high level, like a very high level of awareness. How did you, and that is not to me, that's the most, the character that's missing most in people in general. Nobody's aware of anything. I mean, people walking in the middle of the street, and, it's all like they're all wrapped up in this but just awareness in general is really like a scarcity. But you have a pretty high level of awareness. Where did you get that from?
Well, when I came to America and New York, I got introduced to Buddhism just through some books and stuff. And then when I went through, around that time I was making that first Spooky Ghost record, I was one of the valleys in my time in New York.
Sure.
I needed something to help me, and I found a meditation was really helping. And so I started to study meditation and Buddhism, and I did some retreats and stuff. I took it pretty seriously for a number of years. Recently too, I've come back to my meditation in the mornings every day. I find, it really helps me. It really helps me. So a lot of that stuff is to do with, the basic training, and I'm still a novice, but the basic training is mindfulness. But there's also something else in those teachings, which is it's about dissolving a little bit and trying to understand your essence and not letting the mind rule everything.
Yeah. And
I think that's really important. I think musicians have that in general. When you play and you practice, you're kind of like, you go somewhere else and it's another kind of a discipline, but but I think you have to take that, you have to take some of that out of it. And, there's a little bit of grief in letting that go, because we protect ourselves with a lot of that stuff, ego and who we think we are and our story and all of those things. But you need to kind of, essentially, you can't hold on to it. So sooner we get rid of some of it and get on to the next thing, the better, because there's plenty more to do. It's kind of like music, plenty more to do. So,
man, that's great. Yeah, because you could tell that you're just aware of these things, and not that you're controlling them, but they're not controlling you.
Yeah, to be able to let it go a little bit.
Yeah.
Let equanimity come into things and not be so like, it's not, like we'll all go in our mind, oh my God, this is going to happen and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And in actual fact, none of that shit's going to happen. It's just you're just going to have that bit,
Yeah, right. The other stuff, none of the bad stuff's going to, I know, man. It's so
to try and find that. And it helps me performing as well, because it kind of makes it a singular thing. You're not,
you're right there doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to play the guitar.
Yeah, man.
I just got to play the guitar, make it sound good. That's what I'm there for. And that's a beautiful thing. I do that all day. I love doing that, So,
man, and you do it very well.
That's sounding terrible. Like we opened for Queen. I was with Suzanne and we do this duo thing. And we opened for Queen up in Helsinki, and it was a huge crowd, and Adam Lambert or whatever was singing or whatever. Yeah. But I was super pumped to see there's American pumped to see Brian.
That's right. they'll be shaking their heads in Ireland when they hear this.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's taking the soup. He's gone over to the other side.
He's on the other side.
So, and Brian May, I was like, fantastic. I get to meet Brian May, and maybe he'll even see me play, and that'll be a lovely thing, So I get up on stage, and we've got rental amps, and, my my second on my list is a pair of Fender Deluxes, reissues or whatever. And so they have a pair of amps, and I get to stage like half an hour before we go on. I'm like, okay, set up all my stuff, and I plug into the amps. And these are the worst sounding amps they're like brown, fizzly, like everything is kind of dying or buzzing. I'm like, oh my God, I can't get a decent sound out of these amps. And then we're kind of like, the sound guy's kind of like, oh, you want to check the acoustics? You want to check the electrics? I'm like, I'm trying to, and it was the worst set of amps I've ever, since. I've never had worse amps since. And then I had to play. And then it was like, okay, we're on. And Brian May's there. And I'm like, oh, this is great. This is really great, but what are you going to do? You just got to play. You can't kind of, I'm not playing because Brian.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, right. That's right. Right.
So
did you get to connect with Brian?
We said hi.
Oh.
No.
Brian, like, hook a brother
nice
up,
amps.
man.
He said, how do you they custom amps? Yeah, I run them on a 9-volt battery, actually. The pair of them on one battery. That's what it sounded like. Anyway,
yeah, that's awful.
A little bit of Buddhism to get you through that moment.
Yeah, but it isn't. I have really made a great effort in the last 5 to 10 years to really try to be doing one thing at a time, man, and it really takes a lot of stress off the table doing that. Yeah. One thing and do it well, and to stay with it and not get scattered. Yeah, I was always the kind of person, like, I measured myself by productivity. So it was really important for me. I always used to think, hey man, I'm good with time deepening. I'm going to do 6 things at once. And that's cool to get a lot of shit done, but you're not present on any of them. There's no recollection, and it's like just too stressful.
Yeah.
And it's much easier just doing the one thing at a time, man.
Yeah. I mean, the multitasking thing it's interesting. Sometimes when you have to do a lot of things quickly, you can kind of like, okay, I'll download this, and then I'll put the dinner on, and then I'll come back and it'll be downloaded, and then I'll, but then you end up burning the dinner and the computer crashes or whatever. So, but if you have to do that, that's one thing. But like, I would be the person, like, I would that would be my own governor, which is not good at all for me anyway, man. Yeah. No, but you're right. I mean, I think there's more and more ways to be distracted now. There's more and more ways to multitask and kind of like spin your wheels, as opposed to doing one thing, like making a music or making a track or writing a song or even practicing or something like that. If you can be really present, like I used to do this thing when I would practice, and I would say, okay, I have to notice 3 things when I practice. And so what would that be? So I'm doing the same maybe exercises that I always do, but like I would notice 3 things that I never noticed before. They might be tiny or they might be huge.
That's huge, man.
Physical, it might be a technique thing, or it might be like something to do with the guitar or whatever. But it also brings your focus in to, like, you're looking for something. So you're not just kind of rattling it off, like how many times we've played the fretboard and we still can't remember where F is on an A string, like, oh, there, sorry, song was over. So what can you do to kind of like, what do you, or if you keep making the same mistake, when I play with a lot of duo stuff with Suzanne, it's very exposed. And what I've noticed, and that comes back to my classical guitar training, was like, I'll be working on fingering for those pieces, and I'll evolve it over a year being on the road. Like, why is this part always difficult? I'm like, well, it's because you make this leap and you're not anchored. You don't know where you're going. What key are you in? What are you doing? And it makes a difference, because you can really shore up your playing and make it, because if your job is there to play and to resonate and not drop a note and really make it speak, you need to know where you're going and what's going on. It can't be just kind of like, it kind of goes something like this,
Yeah, for sure.
Which, if you play with an ensemble, it's interesting. When I go back then and I play with a band, I'm always amazed at how little I have to do. Like, oh, I don't have to do, I should just stop playing all this other shit. and just play the top part, which is another discipline. But it's not always apparent,
Yeah. I really like that. Notice 3 things when you're
Yeah,
practicing.
notice 3 things when you're practicing. And that's
It's really good.
That's
Where'd you
just
get that?
real simple thing. I just made it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No charge.
No charge. Next one. That one's for free.
First one's free.
Fourth thing I charge for.
Laurie Anderson, I know you met, isn't it? See, that's another cool thing about New York. Where else are you going to meet and become friends with Laurie Anderson? It ain't going to happen in Kansas.
I used to go up to the top of Hoth Hill in Dublin, in my sister's car and blast, a Mr. Heartbreak.
That's wild.
Love that album. And Big Sky, not Big Sky, but the one with Superman on it. But all that other.
I know the one you're talking about. So how did you connect with her?
Yeah. Well, so I had a friend in court. My friend Kevin Killen, who's a great producer, mixer, engineer. He recorded and mixed the Peter Gabriel Soul album, for instance.
Okay.
And with Lanois, obviously, and Peter Gabriel. But Kevin was the engineer on all that stuff. Kevin worked in Lombard Studios with me back in the day. We used to do our demos with bands at the weekends. He would take one weekend, I would take the next weekend. That's where I met Kevin. Kevin moved to New York. His career took him to New York, and he started working with, he did the Gabriel records, Kate Bush records, U2 records, Elvis Costello.
Wow.
You name it. All these, and he's a great, great engineer. He, when I did my Hinterland, that was my band that was signed to Ireland. We needed somebody to mix the record, and Kevin Killen was free. And I was like, I know Kevin. And Kevin came to studio in England. We all went there and we mixed the record. And that's when I reconnected with Kevin. And so Kevin was living in New York. So when I moved to New York, Kevin was like, how's it going? Da, da, da. And
so you had a couple of buddies there. He was one of them.
Yeah, he was one of them. And he was working on Laurie's record. She was doing the Bright Red record. And I guess Laurie was like looking for something and said, oh, you should try my friend Gerry, whatever. So I went down to play on one song, and I ended up playing on 7 or 8 songs. We got along, and I loved going down there. She had a place down in Canal Street. And she kind of took me under her wing a little bit as well, because she, like I said, she was really supportive. With
the singing and the song lyrics, she said.
Yeah, afterwards, I could always play my stuff for her, and she's just she's a pretty awesome human being, and she's very artistic, and that's something that there's no handbook on how to be an artist.
No, man, you're either are or you're not.
Yeah, and you have to find your way, So I come from a very working class kind of background, and I was kind of ungrounded in a lot of ways, and she would be like, so she was someone I could talk to, someone I could bounce ideas off and stuff. But back that was afterwards. So I got to play on the record and meet her that way, and we hit it off.
Any funny stories?
I'd make scones. I got into this thing of making scones. I don't know how I fell into it, but
they're delicious, man.
And I'd bring them down. I'd make clotted cream and scones and jam, and I'd bring them down to the session. I think that's how I got most of my work in the early days. Was scones. That's the fourth thing. I have to charge you for that one now.
Man, there was this place up in the Bronx, an Irish place, and they would import scones from Ireland.
Yeah.
And I would buy them and send them to my wife.
Yeah.
They're delicious, man.
Yeah, you need to get a flour sifter. That's the key.
Set the key, scones.
But it's very easy. Very easy. If you send me $50, I'll send you the recipe.
Right on, I will. Any other gigs you want to talk about, or any other people you've worked with that were cool and fun, or you have some nostalgia or good memories you want to chat about?
There was a time in New York when I was just kind of like starting to put down roots, and I got to work with Duncan which was great, and Duncan was super supportive, and I met Mark and then met David, but I also met Suzanne Vega through Rupert Hine had produced a Duncan record, and then Rupert was producing a Suzanne record, got me to come in and play on that, and that was a thrill. We're such good friends now, but you know, I remember when we were doing the Hinterland record, you know, demos and stuff, like we had Suzanne's cassettes on the cassette player.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, and you know, she was so much part of that new wave thing of new artists. Even so, yeah, it was a thrill to meet her. It really was. You know, meet any of these guys, Roger Glover, Roger Waters. That was an interesting.
What was that like, man? You know, I've
crazy.
What was that like working with him?
It was like Pink Floyd for a couple of days, you know. So I got, you know, it was one of those things. I cleared my schedule. That sounds fancy, but I did. I cleared it because my friends were making a movie, and they had a small budget, and they wanted me to do the soundtrack, which was a dream come true for me.
Was that the Galas?
No, this was called 32A.
Okay.
And I actually did a full score for that movie. It was an Irish kind of movie, and a beautiful little movie. And it was really fun to do, you know, to write all the cues and all that kind of stuff. So I had the week cleared, and it was like Monday night, and I get a call. Somebody says, "Oh, somebody's calling you. They want you to work on this movie." And I looked at the number. It was 917 movie and a number, and I was like, "That's a cell phone number." And I was like, "Oh, I know what this is. This is somebody, you know, some film school kid in Brooklyn, and they're going, you know, I was going off like they want me to come down and do all the work, and I'm going to leave, and they're going to give me $500, and I'm not doing that. I'm doing my project, you know."
So you were not Zen back then, because you had the whole story mapped out already.
No, I was defending my, you know, this is like I was defending my time, because, you know, it's not often I take time for myself for stuff.
Right.
You know?
Okay, I gotcha.
You're always on call, kind of thing. It was my little rant, you know. And so I called the number, and it was Sandy, and she's this orchestral fixer, and she was like, I wonder if you're available for a session tomorrow. I was like, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "Well, it's Roger Waters and Howard Shore's writing the score, and we have Steve Gadd on drums, and we're wondering if you're available to come down tomorrow and for the session." And I was like, "What time is the session?" 10 a.m. I'll be there. Like, that's total about turn. Like, are you kidding me? So I loaded up the car the night before, put some new strings on, went down, and it was a film score that end credits that for New Line Cinema thing, and Roger. It was the 11th hour. They needed desperately to get Roger to finish this song because the orchestra was coming in and the movie was being cut and everything, and Roger, I guess, had been procrastinating, and Steve Gadd was there, and then this guy James, I can't think of his second name right now, but has done all the Pink Floyd recording for Gilmour and, well, Pink Floyd sessions.
Engineer?
Yeah, engineer. James, it'll come to me. Anyway, great guy, English guy, and does all Roger's stuff. And then Roger comes in, and for some reason, I didn't bring scones, but I brought a box of Barry's tea, right? I was like, I'll bring tea. Is
that your thing? Is everybody knows, like, hey man, we're going to be hungry. You know, we need Gerry here at this session.
I do love food. Good tea and good coffee. So I brought a box of Barry's tea, and like early on, like Steve Gadd was there. So I never met Steve Gadd before, and that was amazing. And you know, he's got a drum tech and stuff. So he's drum tech setting up, and he's like, and I was like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And he's like, "What's that?" Like, so I made him a cup of Barry's tea, and he was liking it. And then Roger comes in, like, upstairs. Bless him. I met him in the hall. I was unpacking some guitars, and he goes, "Are you the guitar player for today?" And I was like, "Yes, Gerry, nice to meet you." He goes in, and it's like everybody's fussing around him, and it's like, "I want a cup of Builder's tea." And I was like, "We have the very thing," because Sandy was looking like, "Oh, what do we do?" And I was like, "Sandy, come with me," and we made Barry's tea, which is like strong. It's Irish, but it's very similar to English tea. So we put that fire out straight away with the tea. But you know, I ended up kind of hanging out, and Steve cut his drums, and then we started doing guitars, and I did a ton of guitars for them. And you know, James's thing was like, we triple track everything. This is how we get that Pink Floyd sound. And you know, we did it. We spent a lot of time. a lot of care. Roger would bark a few orders every now and again, and we did our thing. And it started sounding like a Pink Floyd track. It really did. It was 2 tape machines too. I mean, it was, I don't know what the date was. It was after the Realities tour, I'm pretty sure. So it was mid 2000s. But 2 tape machines, one chasing the other, very old school. And I did all these guitars, and then they had me come back a second day, and then we did all these we did a kind of lead guitar, and the track was like 7 minutes or something like that.
Oh, that's
they were supposed to be
beefy track.
I'm sorry?
I said that's a big track. That's a beefy track.
Yeah, because it was all the end credits, you know. So it was this big
right.
It was a lot of sections and then this long outro. And so I did him some guitar that he loved. On my Les Paul, they got a Marshall in, we got the sound. James dialed up the sound. It was like great. It was amazing working with those kind of guys. And we did this guitar, and then apparently they did, and then I left, and then they did there was all the strings the next day, and apparently Robert hated the strings. Apparently he was like this. Who do you think I fucking am? Paul fucking McCartney, whatever. Anyway, he didn't like the strings, so they ended up using my guitar instead of the strings.
Oh wow! What's the name of that track? Can you listen to that online somewhere?
I think it's called Hello, and it's the closing track from the Last Mimzy. There's stuff out there. There's a little video documentary thing on it or something.
The Last Mimzy, awesome.
Yeah.
Any nuggets gleaned from Roger outside of that he likes tea? Strong.
We didn't become buddies. I mean, he called me again to work on some stuff, and he didn't call me to work on the Wall tour, which would have been nice. But
oh my God,
but that's okay. And just it was amazing to meet him. I mean, he's an interesting character, and very, very much a man of his own mind, but like through all his kind of like, kind of barking and whatever, the vision of the track, like everything he said was spot on to bring the track into his domain. It really sounded like a Roger Waters track, so his personality comes through in that,
yeah. That's so cool that you got to work with him, though. I mean,
yeah.
He's one of the icons of music of the last 50 years, of rock music.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. And that voice, and then to have Steve Gadd on the sessions too. I mean, it was just, for me, it was just a real thrill,
Anything you're looking forward to after COVID, musically or otherwise?
Man, oh man. It's like I thought it was going to be one thing, and now as the dust settles, you kind of go, oh, okay, because like, I was on tour when it happened, right? So I got sent home like our tour.
So Gerry, let me just say, Gerry was on tour. What's the Bowie band called?
Oh yeah, it's a Bowie celebration.
A Bowie celebration.
So it's
go ahead.
Yeah. It's hosted by Mike Garson, who's the longtime piano player with David. Played all that, probably best known maybe for Aladdin Sane, that crazy piano solo on Aladdin Sane. But, he was with David from the last days of he was actually one of the Spiders. I mean, he joined back then, and he endured right to the end with David, and a phenomenal musician and a great, great person, dear friend. Since David's passing, there was a few kind of tries at it, but the idea was that, and of essentially people who played in David's bands over the years come together with some guest singers, and play shows to celebrate David's music, which I had misgivings about, because we were all a little confused as to what we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. But over the years, I found that it was actually very cathartic to do it. It was great to play music with the authentic guys. It really sounded like David's stuff. Everybody had a relationship with David. Everybody had a lot of respect for the music. And then the audience, the last piece of the puzzle was the audiences really loved it. I mean, it was really an emotional thing. So we were out there doing that tour. We'd done Europe, and we just started the American tour, and we were actually in Seattle. Seattle had been cancelled, but we had to go there anyway because we were going up to Vancouver. And word came back that the dates just started falling like dominoes, and it was like, you know what, you're on a plane home, and that we'd another month of touring to go. So that fell apart. And then I dates in Norway and stuff. And then I was going to go to Berlin and start with Suzanne right on the back of that for about 12 days to promote her new record, which is Live at the Carlisle. And then those dates crumbled. And then I was starting a summer tour with Suzanne. We were starting in Glastonbury. It was 50 years of Glastonbury. She was the first woman on stage in Glastonbury, on the main stage.
Wow, that's really cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
We were going to be so we were going to be part of all that. That fell. Then Montreux Jazz Festival fell. Then Cambridge Folk Festival fell. Then the rest, tour dates are just falling like dominoes. Everything got moved to September. But who knows what's going to happen now? It just feels like. So playing a show is going to be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If we ever get back to that, you know.
God, I would hate to think that wouldn't happen. But man, who the hell knows?
Yeah, I got to say, I see it like bit by bit. I don't know if we're going to have any more shows this year.
I don't know what's going on.
I mean, there's shows in the books, but I just don't know that they're going to happen, you know. So
I know it's
all of these great projects.
Very confusing times.
Yeah.
And then
so it would be great, you know, when it all finishes. Sorry, you were going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, then we get used to normal becomes redefined pretty easily as a human. We're a much more, you know, used to adaptable than we think. So this is the new norm.
Pretty astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very impressed with the way people have kind of like changed. You know, in a way, it's not that different from coming off tour. It's kind of like, it's always changing for us, you know?
Yeah.
Like we've one set of realities and we put up a certain amount of barriers or protective, you know, so as we can move around the world and not become undone. And then you come home and then you've got to become part of your family again. And but anyway, it's good training for COVID. Touring is good training.
No, I've heard this, what you said so many times, like you're touring around the world and then you're home and you got to take out the garbage and it's like, what the hell? I mean, there's no decompression time. There's no down, you know, and like even dealing with family responsibilities, it's like, you know, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a quick transition.
It's not easy. I would say to my wife, I said, we need a week. When I come home off tour, I say,
oh, that's good.
We need a week. And let's be kind to each other for a week. And if there's any big stuff, let's push it off. We need a week. And generally after a week, you kind of like, they get used to me being around and I'm used to them being around.
No, but that's a really good way to do it.
Out a couple of times, hopefully.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, though, to be up front and say, hey, listen, I need a week, which is really reasonable and fair. Yeah. I'm going to try that. But I'm not
I'm going to be a crazy person for a week.
What if I said to my wife, hey, hon, I need a week. I can't really do any shit until next week.
Yeah, I need a week. I'm feeling very sensitive. Yeah, whatever. Just take the group joke.
Yeah. She don't put up with my bullshit. Believe me, she hasn't never for almost 30 years. Thank God.
Scones. Try the scones.
Scones, man. It's been a while since I've given her scones. You're right. I'm gonna write that down. Scones. It's coming up soon. You know what? I'm gonna get your recipe. I'm gonna make them for her. Is what I'm gonna do. That's
yeah. I'll send you the recipe.
That's good brownie points. Man, what was tell me some of the low points, Gerry, or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
Well, probably like, losing the record deal stuff, all of that stuff, the up and down. I mean, because it pumps you up so high and you have so many expectations and then it falls away and you're back to scratch again. And that's happened to me a lot of times. And you kind of you never really get used to it, but you maybe get used to dealing with it a little better. So, you know, I remember when I first moved to New York, I had a first flush of, I had a little bit of work that I came to. I'd worked with an artist and I'd played on the record, and then I got to tour a little bit, and that was great. And then I worked with Laurie, and it felt like I was starting to make my way a little bit in New York. And then it all dried up, and then I was back to kind of like, I actually have no money, and I have to borrow money from my sister and find somewhere to live and try and scratch around and get a few little gigs doing sound for $100 in Webster Hall or Brownies, doing 5 bands a night, and you know, the real grind or whatever.
Wow, that's I didn't realize it's a lot of work for not that much money. I didn't realize how much they pay. 5 shows for $100.
Yeah, no,
that's
it was like band after band after band.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Yeah, and you know, some of the bands were good, some of them were not. You know, whatever. But you know, that was a little bit of a low. You know, it's generally that kind of thing. Where thankfully I've never had any serious illness or anything like that.
Yeah, man,
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's.
I was gardening once and I stuck my hand into a wood chipper and hurt my finger, and that was really dumb.
Holy shit! You just hurt it? You didn't lose a finger?
That it's back. It wasn't. Thankfully, it wasn't bad, and I didn't stick my hand into the chipper. I just got a cut. I did something stupid.
Wow.
Because I like to do things. I like to make things. I like to, you know, we live in the country, and I like to, you know, feel like, yeah, I can do that. I can take that tree down with my chainsaw. But I've learned that probably not a good idea.
Yeah, that's funny, man.
Like, I think the wood that I should be dealing with is this more fine aged, already sanded and varnished wood,
like a guitar.
The raw stuff. So that was, I was by myself as well, and I nearly fell over.
Wow.
So that was kind of, I felt pretty stupid when I did that. You know, when you do things that are, and then you feel like that, I can't believe how stupid I am. That's a pretty low point, I think, in your life. You know, we've all had those.
Yeah, tons.
But you know, we get. You know, people forgive us, or, you know, we forgive ourselves, or, you know, life picks us up again, you know. So, you know.
Hey,
I know I sound like I'm a really positive person. I try. That's all. I just.
Hey, you sound pretty like, you know, you don't let shit get you down. That's all, which is great, you know, because life's tough. Life is not for the weak.
Well, it is, and a lot of it's in our own mind too. And you know, I mean, but you know, we have to be proactive, and we've got to take care of stuff. What you do today will be what you have tomorrow, kind of thing. And
yeah,
so, you know,
discipline is important, man.
That really pays off. Yeah, a little bit. It does pay off. You know, and I learned that the hard way in New York. Like it came from Ireland, where things are a little more like, yeah, it'll be grand. And then I didn't get the gigs or whatever in New York, and I was like, oh, I got to up my game here. Like this just isn't gonna fly, you know. So, but that's good, right? It's good to up the game.
You have to. Yeah. Well, you have no choice in New York. Hey, man, let's talk about gear for a few minutes. Tell me, what is your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 would round out your top 3, and has that changed over the years?
Right. You know, that's a tricky question. Not a tricky question. And so, you know, there's a guitar right behind me here, this 3 pickup SG.
Right.
You know, that's very special place for me, because I was 16 when I got that. It was my first Gibson. I was first step away from the copy. You know, I had an Ibanez Les Paul copy. Well, first of all, I made my first electric guitar with my dad.
Wow, was your dad a woodworker? That's really cool.
No, my dad was a postal worker.
Wow.
But he was like one of those, you know, in the old world, where, you know, you fixed your car, you fixed your plumbing, you did a little bit of electrical work. He had a shed, he had some tools, we were always working on cars, motorcycles, and then he had a little rental property, and we would go fix it up. And so it was just kind of, we had a drill, we had some files, we had a vise, we had basic stuff, really basic stuff. I mean, my toolkit here in America is so Rolls Royce to what we grew up with. But anyway, we made the thing, and my friends restored it for me recently. Let me just grab it for 1 second.
Yeah, please. Is that a harmony right above you? That old harmony?
That's probably a Tysco.
I love the way that one looks, man.
This one, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Tysco. Somebody turned me on to this, and Flip Scipio worked on it for me. They were like $100 guitars.
Yeah.
It's got a reinforced steel neck that you could probably run a truck over, But Ry Cooder apparently loved these pickups, and I use it for slide. I have some flat bands on it, and it's killer for slide.
I had a funny feeling I was gonna ask you to use that for slide, because a lot of guys do.
Yeah, the way it's strung right now, the frets are pretty small, and it's kind of crackly and stuff. I don't take it out live or anything like that, but it's got a beautiful tone for slide. This was the electric we made.
Oh my God!
Oh, the Delta. Right.
That's amazing that you made that.
And, we got a piece of, so my dad was, pretty industrious. Another guy in the golf club ran a furniture factory. And so we went over there and we got a scrap piece of mahogany for the neck. And he kind of like rough cut it out, and I did the sanding. It's very flat neck, because I started to sand it, and mahogany is like, if you're a 12-year-old boy, it's like trying to move mountains. So I just rounded off the edges is the best I could do.
Sure.
And then the idea was it was a 2-piece body, because you didn't have a router, right? So you made a cutout for the pickup in the first piece of chipboard, I think it is, like a particle board. And then we got this piece of walnut or something for the back, and then you sandwiched the two together. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
And then you got that was it. And
so what kind of pickup is in there?
Well, I cheated. The part 2, the second, next month, they give you the plans for the pickup. You're supposed to wind your own pickup, because it was an electronics magazine.
Oh my God.
But I went to the music store. I'd saved up some money, and I bought an Ibanez pickup and jammed it in there. So that's what's in there, an Ibanez.
Do you still play that ever?
It's great for, it's really lo-fi kind of punk rock. If I want to play something really trashy, like I'll put this up, because you just kind of have to hang on with this guitar. I mean, it plays, and I can get a track. I got some overdubs out of it. It's really fun to play. So if you want to do some, like, if you want it to be real punk rock, and like garage band, like learning to play, this is the instant punk rock. That's cool, man. It's nice that you still have that. Wow. And that it functions. Yeah, it was in my dad's shed, and back
that's
in
a good
Dublin.
Memory.
And then they were selling the house, and somehow I grabbed it, and then it was here for years. And I have a friend who's a real genius with stuff. He makes microphones, makes his own instruments and stuff. And he was fascinated. He was like, we want to fix this up for you, because the tuners didn't turn anymore and stuff like that. So they very faithfully restored it and made it playable again for me, which is awesome.
So that's not your number one.
So the SG is, and I used that on the David tour. Now the thing I realized over the years with the SG is it's actually kind of a difficult guitar to play, because it's got smaller frets and low action.
Are you tall? You have big hands?
No, my wife says average. I'm very average. Right. I don't know what she means by that. Expectations. In my mind, I'm not average. But we won't go there.
Best part of the call. Let me write down the time. Make sure you go too.
This is a cool guitar, but
a really cool guitar.
And when I did Hinterland, I did all the guitars on this, and this was like my guitar, and it really does sound like me. But what I realized once I had, had the money to actually get some other guitars, is that it's probably not the greatest guitar to play all kinds of music on it, because it kind of makes you play in a certain way. And that's maybe what carved out a lot of my style,
That having to play in that certain way.
Yeah, and it's out of tune right now, but it has this little very gentle tremolo system, the Maestrola, or
yeah, right. What are those 3 pickups? Are those the standard pickups with the SG?
Well, yeah. So here's because I'm always fixing things and tinkering with things, and I would take, as soon as I got this guitar, I took it apart. Actually, I have a little merch screwdriver. I should send you one. And in small writing, it says, "If it ain't broke, take it apart and see how it works." Because that's kind of.
You know what? I read that somewhere. I read that you're a tinkerer. That's right. I read that you're a tinkerer and you sell merch screwdrivers.
Yeah, I thought a good little screwdriver. It's got a flat head on one end, a cross head at the other.
That's really awesome. That's awesome.
So I took it apart many times, and then I actually swapped this pickup out for a velvet hammer. It was a time when Mighty pickups first started, like companies started making, like DiMarzio had come out, and a bunch of those companies. And I don't know who made this velvet hammer. Anyway, I put that in there, and I drilled the guitar, and I put a little coil tap switch, which was probably not great, and I don't know what I did with the PAF that was in it.
Those are PAFs. Those are original PAFs.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And you swapped it out. Wow.
I swapped it out for this pickup, which I never use anymore.
Oh my gosh.
I never used it then, and I don't use it now. And the PAF, I think I stuck it into the Ibanez and I sold it or something. Back then you didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
You weren't thinking about, oh my God, this will be worth 60 grand one day or 40 grand or whatever.
The only smart thing I did was, and I only had a little Ampex 25 watt soldering iron, but I managed to desolder the pickup cover and off the PAF and put it on this.
Okay.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would have had this ugly thing. So I got the pickup cover, which is the original.
Yeah.
But a different pickup. Anyway, I never used that part of the guitar. I generally use this pickup.
You play on the neck or just the neck pickup. Yeah. Lovely guitar. What year is that?
It's a 69. It's a 69.
Holy shit.
Right when they changed. And I sold my 10-speed racing bicycle and my Ibanez Les Paul, and my dad gave me 20 quid, and I went in on the bus and I bought this, and I thought it was, and I remember my guitar teacher at the time, he was a local guy, played some guitar, got up late in the mornings. I was fascinated with him, but he had a Les Paul, and then brought it. I was thrilled. I was like, "Here's my new guitar," and he played it a bit, and he's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And then you'll get a Les Paul, and I was like, "Never." So I didn't get a Les Paul until I played with David in 2003 or something like that. That's when I finally got a Les Paul. I was so dug in about it.
I'm dug in with that.
That's a great guitar. But anyway, the other guitar that I play a lot, and it's this one, PRS made for me. They're very good people there, and I've met Paul a bunch of times.
Is that a custom guitar? Or is that a signature?
Well, no, it's a custom finish, but it's a hollow body.
Yep.
So it's the PRS McCarthy, but it's got the piezo system, the bridge, right? So it's got an acoustic here, and then a 2-pickup, very straightforward 2-pickup system, and then it's got a dual output. And when I play now with Suzanne, and when I play my Spooky Ghost stuff, I use this guitar all the time because I run the acoustic and the electric, and I can loop the acoustic and play electric over it, or loop the electric and play acoustic, or sometimes loop both. They're not linked, but I just do it anyway. And it really opens up a lot. It's a great guitar. I string it with a wound third because it plays more like an acoustic, behaves more like an acoustic, but it's really got a thing. And
what made you get a hollow body?
Super accurate.
What made you get a hollow body?
It's the guitar that they made, and so the same guy, Peter Dannenberg, that I played with Roger Glover. Peter is an old friend of Paul Reed Smith, I guess. They go way back, and Paul had come out with this guitar, and he needed somebody to demo it for the NAMM show. I mean, I'm the last person you'd expect to meet at the NAMM show, but they asked me if to go out and demo it. Long story boring. I ended up going to the NAMM show and playing Paul's original, which was the thicker body of this. And at the NAMM show for them, kind of as a demo guy, I played like 2 or 3 times a day. And
right.
Their little booth, which was very nice. And like I say, great people. And I started a relationship with them. And then they gave me one of these guitars and I started using it live. And then I used it all the way through the David tour and stuff. And then I wanted a white guitar. I started to use a white Les Paul, and I had this one that was flame top and it was very ornate, and it's kind of not me. So I said, could you repaint it? And they were like, we'll make you one. So they did, and they made me this one, and it's
That's nice, man.
And it's got the moon dot inlay, and
yeah.
I got into this whole thing of like just the simplicity of it and the black and white, So that guitar I use a lot, and then it kind of depends on the artist, I gotta say, So this guitar, because I've been doing so much stuff with Suzanne, is like, this is the workhorse for that.
Right.
Guitar. I just take this guitar and only this guitar, and I play the whole show on it, and hopefully the airlines don't lose it, and I play another show with it. So
yeah.
It's kind of been pivotal. After that, I don't have a ton of guitars. I have a Les Paul that I've learned to love because it's very even, and the headstock keeps snapping off it, so I can't travel with it anymore. I swear to God. And I'm trying to get that sorted out with Gibson. That's a great guitar. I have another SG that I use because I love SGs. I love with a band. I think they've got the right kind of mid-range. They sit really well with the band.
Don't you find it awkward? I have an SG. I love it, but I got it for sale because it just, I can't, the weight balance thing is just too weird for me.
Oh, I don't know. I like them.
Yeah.
I like them probably because I like this one.
Yeah.
I have a more modern one. It has it's a reissue, but it has the same tremolo and 2 pickup. And Flip Scipio worked on them, and the guitar really speaks now. It's great. I love it.
Who is that? Is he a guy in the city or something?
So he's a luthier. He's out in New York. He's a Dutch guy, but he was the guy they got to refret McCartney's Hofner bass.
Oh, wow.
Mandolin Brothers here. He used to work at Mandolin Brothers. He was the head guy there. He does his own thing. But he does Dylan's guitars. He does Paul Simon's guitars. He does everybody's stuff. And he's kind of a genius luthier. So I the really special stuff, when I can afford it, I go to Flip.
So let me guess, you bring him soda bread. and you get the musician's deal.
No, I love him as a person and as a luthier. He's just very he's got a real gift for it,
Yeah, that's nice. You get some lovely guitars, man.
This was a Bowie reissue, the Supro that he used on the reality tour, and the nice people were nice enough to give me one of these prototypes. And it's actually a really nice guitar. It's got these single coil pickups in it.
Oh, those aren't humbuckers. Interesting.
Yeah, they're single coils, and it's kind of, so it's a little more lo-fi. And I try to over the years now, I've just try and pick a couple of guitars and make them, like, I try and clean them up and all the fretboards and work on the neck and just myself, make them really playable, something that you want to pick up and play.
Yeah.
Because if you have a lot of guitars, the worst thing is, pick up a guitar and it's all dusty and crusty and you just don't want to play it,
No, not at all. Is that PRS over there to your left, over your left shoulder? Is that the same as the custom one? It's just different color?
Well, they made a 12-string version of it, but it doesn't have the acoustic. It doesn't have the acoustic pickup because I was
the piezo.
So I sold another guitar and I got this one. And it's a really good electric 12 because I had this beautiful now this one's crusty, but nice Rickenbacker 12, right?
Oh, wow.
That played great. And I came back off tour one year and bridge, it just snapped it right off. So I'm still waiting for my part. Hello, anybody at Rickenbacker? I swear to God, I've tried to get on their site and buy the part, I don't know, 20 times, and I just can't seem to get the part. But this thing is very, this thing plays great. And, you know, a 12-string can be difficult to make work. Mm-hmm. So it's just a nice color, you know.
It's a real pretty guitar, yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
like tiger's eye sort of pattern. You know, the
I have
quilting is nice.
An old Firebird with P90s that, you know, that's really interesting, but quirky. You know, what else do I have? I have, you know, there's a bunch of stuff around. I mean,
do you play Strats ever?
No, I'm not a Fender guy.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I have a Telecaster, and I've had Telecasters over the years, and somehow I don't know where they went. You know, that's what happens when you move country. A lot of your gear goes missing too. I had some nice AC30s and then Marshall 50. I don't know where they are, but anyway, hopefully they're being used. Yeah. I have a Telecaster, and that's a guitar I mean, I love the way people play Telecasters. Roy Buchanan, or you mentioned Jim Campolango. I mean, amazing, beautiful. I don't really play that way, but I love this. I love to try and play that way. And so I mess around with Strats. I don't know. They never seem to, if you play Gibsons and then go to a Strat, it just doesn't feel right to me. And I like the heavier, thicker sound. I like a warmer tone.
I do as well, actually. I'm more of a Gibson sounding. I prefer the Gibson sound. It's warmer is how I yeah. It's definitely fatter and warmer sound.
Yeah.
First record you ever bought, do you remember what that was?
I think it was Thin Lizzy, Johnny the Fox.
That's funny.
That album, you know, that was the days when you get a record voucher as for your birthday present or something like that. It was like
really?
And you go into the record store, and it was normally the price of a record, so it was $5.99 or whatever it was. But then you get an album. So I think I bought Johnny the Fox because it was the one right after the one with Jailbreak. Maybe it was called Jailbreak, which was maybe a better record, but everybody had that record and nobody had the new one. So I bought the new one because then you'd swap with your pals or whatever.
Yeah. Top 3 Desert Island discs just for this minute.
Oh, God. Well, it would be something by Arvo Pärt, the classical composer, for sure. I mean, the Tabula Rasa with Keith Jarrett and Gideon Kramer. I mean, that sounds highfalutin, but it's beautiful music. Beautiful, beautiful music. You know, that Talk Talk Spirit of Eden record, even though I haven't listened to it in forever, that was a huge record for me.
What kind of music is that? Because I have it written down. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to pull it up today.
Which one?
Talk Spirit of Music.
Yeah, Spirit of Eden. It's very so they in the 80s they made a lot of pop stuff, almost synth stuff, and it's very different. But this record is very organic, and the songs are long, and it's like it ebbs and it flows, and you know it's got woodwinds and harmonica, but distorted, and guitars, and this who's the singer's name? It'll come to me in a minute. But a beautiful singer, and it's just I don't know. It's beautiful. It's lovely. You'll hear the I think
to your stuff once I hear that.
When I got my record deal, right before we went in the studio, our manager's like, "You guys should take a holiday." So we went off to some sunny, you know, Tenerife or something like that. It was Comedy Central, but anyway, we did it for 10 days. And in the airport, I bought a cassette of Spirit of Eden, and I had a Walkman, and I would play that constantly. And it was new out, and it was kind of a commercial flop for them because it wasn't pop music anymore. But I loved it, and I've been listening to it ever since. You know. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it because I thought when you said talk, I thought to myself they're a pop band if I remember right. But okay, I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah, they were pop, and then they went all serious, man. You know, Kate Bush, Hounds of Love, great record. I don't know. I just keep coming back to that record. She was on a roll when she made that, and it's so it's so evocative and so beautiful, and she's such an incredible talent, I think, singer. I would love to play with her. It's probably never going to happen, but I would love to.
You never know. Let's put it out there. Kate Bush, if you're people or you are listening, I got a guy for you.
Yeah.
And he comes with scones.
Scones. I think the whole works. Barry's tea and the scones.
What's the best decision you think you ever made?
Probably moved to New York.
Yeah.
I
go
think
back
it was
to
kick
Dublin,
in the
right?
arse, as they say, for me. That's what I needed.
I give you a lot of credit for that. That's a huge move. It really is. Do you ever go back? You go back to Dublin often?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I go back for my family. My two sisters live there. My parents are gone now, but two sisters live there, and my brother's in Paris. So we often go back to Ireland. We'll rendezvous, and I love my brothers and sisters and their families and stuff.
Oh, that's nice, man.
And then I get to go back and do some of the Bowie festival stuff there. I'll do a solo show. I'll do a little appearance thing, or we'll go with Suzanne, or we went back with David that time. I mean, that was incredible.
So nice.
My parents.
Did your family get to come?
Yeah, we played 2 nights, and we shot the DVD in Dublin, and it was insane.
That had to be really cool for you.
It was. It was so great. I mean, I was so proud. I was so terrified. I was so proud. I was so happy. I was so freaked out. It was like
that's
an incredible weekend. But if you do, it's a great DVD, and there's a moment where David introduces me, and it's very emotional.
What's the DVD called?
It's called Reality Live. And he introduced me, and the crowd just won't stop clapping, and then he goes, "Oh, he's actually from Tunbridge, Wales." So I'm leaving the hotel the next day, and it's like the guy's like, "So you're really from Tunbridge, Wales?" And I was like, "Back off."
So David was kind of like he sounded like he had a pretty good sense of humor from what you said.
Oh yeah, he loves laughs. We had a lot of laughs. He loved it. And making him laugh or he loved the whole thing. And we had a lot of little running jokes. We had this hat. So I had this court jester's hat. I don't know. Somebody bought it for me, whatever. And it ended up in rehearsals. And I made it this thing. If you made a mistake, you had to wear the hat.
Oh, of course, right. The dunce cap.
The dunce cap. Yeah. And but we never did it when David was there. We only did it when the band was there rehearsing. Sure. But he wanted in on it. He saw us kind of, and then we had this little symbol, like we do this, like
dunce cap,
made a mistake, hat, and then he fucked up one day, and he was like, "All right, give me the hat."
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, what an extraordinarily regular guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he had that. He was also a magical person,
Yeah.
Really magical person, a very insightful person, very I've never seen anybody like read a room and read people and just know exactly what the hell's going on and be one step ahead of it. Like that's his kind of zeitgeist thing, so he could do it in a social setting, or he could do it on a mass scale with what he did with his music career. It's pretty amazing. Wow. Inspirational.
So I'd be interested, tell me what makes you happy.
Good espresso.
You're Irish and you're a musician. This is a tough one, man.
Good espresso.
Good espresso.
Espresso, because it's so good, and then it makes you feel really good. I don't know, for a little while. What makes me happy? I mean, that's a huge question. I've tried there's a Buddhist tenet where you try and find joy in other people's joy. Mm-hmm. And if I can successfully do that, that's a wonderful thing. It really is, because you get to be happy without having to feel any responsibility for it.
That's nice, man.
But I mean, that's little things make me happy, and and little things frustrate the hell out of me too. So you got to watch that thing. But I love when the music is going well. It's a great feeling, when you're playing, or if you're recording, or if you're working with an artist producing, or whatever it is, and it's going well, and you get that moment where you kind of like, you feel like it's really in focus. That really makes me happy. I can go for days on the back of that, you know.
Yeah. Man, you mentioned coffee. You ever go to that coffee? There's a coffee shop. You know where Jane Street is by any chance? It's like
Yeah,
in the West Village. It runs off like 8th Avenue, I think.
yeah, yeah.
There's a little coffee shop there, I think on the south side of the street called Grounded. Man, they got some of the best coffee
Oh,
I've
I'll
ever
have to
had.
check that one out.
Yeah, it's just so good. And it's a tiny little place, you know. It's funny. It's a place every time we come to the city, even if I
Yeah.
take my kids, the 5 of us sit there and it's just weird. It's a good,
Yeah.
great coffee, man.
Well, I when I tour, I have this thing called Bean Hunter. It's an app on my phone. It's sourced. It started in Australia because they're nuts about coffee, and that's one thing I got to say about Australia. You go down there, and espresso is just excellent, you know. But it's called Bean Hunter, and it's crowdsourced. Like, so it doesn't pull up Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or anything. God bless it, but not for me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I just like good espresso, and it finds the good places. And I found places in Istanbul, and I found places in all kinds of weird places. Manchester, you know.
Wow. Man, I have dreamt for an app like this because I'm my wife and I both drink a ton of coffee.
Oh, try the Bean Hunter app.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is that when we are on tour, we get to a city and I look up Bean Hunter and I'm like, try and find the, you know, a little bit of radar, but try and find the really good place. And maybe it's 2 miles away.
Yeah.
I put on my running gear and I run there and hopefully a scenic route and then have a espresso or two and then run back. And that's
awesome. Yeah, well, you seem like you look at you're fit, man. You like to take care of yourself.
I'm not really fit, but I got to do something. You know, you got to do something.
Oh, you have to, man. Especially, yeah.
Get you outdoors. You need to get outdoors. You need to get out there and be with the people. I want to be with the common people.
Something or someone you miss from your childhood.
I miss my friend Donald from Hinterland. He had MS and he passed away a few years ago.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's a terrible.
He had it all the way through the band. He didn't want to talk about it, so we didn't talk about it. But it was interesting because he gave up his day job and made music his. I mean, he'd always been in bands, but he was like, you know what? I have this disease, and I'm going to do my music, and then, you know, that was his thing, and it was inspirational. You know,
it is inspirational, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, we had a good thing. We always have a laugh, even towards the end. We always had a good old giggle about stuff. Plenty to laugh about too. Those stories in Dublin. Oh my God, the characters. Oh my God.
Who else? I had Anton. I'm trying to think. If I had somebody else from Ireland, I can't think off the top of my head. Younger guitar player. That was it. You have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
I'm not really a hobbyist, but I like making things. So I do a little bit of carpentry. I used to have a motorcycle. I let it go because I thought it was too dangerous when I had my daughter. But like small engine repair. I don't know. I like fixing things. Because I think I came up in a culture where you didn't have a lot, and if it broke, you fixed it. Yeah. And if you didn't have a lot of money, you could get stuff that was broken pretty cheap and then fix it. Yeah. So I've always been kind of tinkering with stuff, and I like that. I like the success of, like, generally I can fixing, or, you know, I don't try and lift, what is it, more than punch above my weight or whatever when it comes to that, but fixing things practically or whatever, you know, making little things. That'd be my hobby, I guess.
Stay away from wood chippers, man.
Yeah, I got rid of the heavy machine. But I make all my own pedal boards.
Oh, do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I have a guy actually make the board. I used to make the board and everything, but I wire them and design them and think about them, and I'm on about version 5. I just finished a brand new one.
I'm smelling a Gerry Leonard pedal line, man. Pedal board line.
Yeah, you know, I had this dream years ago where my amp had this beautiful sound control, and you turned up the beautiful sound control, and everything was beautiful. And I was thinking the other day, this new pedal board is kind of like the beautiful sound control. It's very pretty, you know.
Great.
Yeah. And I tried, I mean, I'm always trying to make things now that fit in one box that I can fly, that'll be robust, but are super versatile, you know? So, yeah, I've been working on that.
Do you take a lot of stuff? Do you have a lot of gear with you on the road, like a lot of effects?
Generally, it's a rig that's kind of pretty densely packed. I've tried to do a little bit of the desert island thing with the rig. So it's like, for instance, is it Living Color, the band?
Yeah.
And actually Corey sings with us and
that's right.
And I saw their setup, and then the bass player and the guitar player, and it's just like 2 pedal boards, like it's a mountain of stuff. And I used to be like that, and it's like, that's insane, and it's fantastic, but it's kind of a nightmare. It's my nightmare as well. So
it weighs a ton to lug all.
And it weighs a ton.
Yeah.
It weighs a ton. And so what I try and do now is try and what are the essential pieces, and what pieces can maybe multitask, and then how can I maximize what I can do with small things. So when I got off the Bowie tour, I got into a switching system, which I really like. And then I tried to condense that down into something that I could fly with Suzanne, because very often it's just the 2 of us and a road manager and a tech. So I made it so that it fit into these 3 Pelican cases, and kind of modular, kind of snap together, and it's very powerful.
That's good.
So look, it depends in your point of view. Do I have a lot of stuff? Some people would, it's definitely more than an amp and a cable. Yes. Yeah.
But your whole thing is sound and texture. You have to have some stuff, man.
You need a certain amount. Yeah. You need a certain amount to make the sound. So I try and have, I got to have looping capabilities. I've got to have, varying kinds of distortion. I like to have things that are more stereo. I like to have, so, over the years, I've found ways to kind of make that a little more doable, but I limit myself. I limit it to, and when I'm mocking up the board, like I'll swap out things to try and, get the most and make it fit into this particular space. And then that's the rig.
You ought to talk with Nels Klein, man.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, but you're both, layers of sound guys.
Yeah.
I wonder what he has on his rig. He's another New York City cat.
It depends too. Like so, obviously when we toured with David, you're on the road with a huge stage and a crew and everything like that. And so you can afford to have more stuff. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But when it shrinks down, and it does these days as a musician, you can be touring with somebody huge and then somebody small, and you need to be able to flexible. Like, there's nothing more embarrassing than showing up with too much stuff it's inappropriate. So and also sometimes I have to set it up myself, and I don't mind doing that, but it's got to be contained. So I try and keep a cap on it.
Yeah. Well, you don't mind doing it, but you don't want to spend 3 hours doing it.
And then I got into this thing also in New York where it was the throw and go, where basically you need the rig, click, 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 plug it in, and it works and it goes.
Great.
And then it breaks down the same way. So it's all about that. It's trying to be a combination of being ergonomic and economical, and yet the most you can do. With that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Tell me 3 more questions. Tell me a specific experience that changed your life or changed the way you think about things.
Well, one of the ones we touched on earlier was I did some Buddhist meditation retreats I remember I was going to be 40 years old, and it seemed like, oh my God, it's so old. And I was like, I was kind of freaking me out. And I was 37, and I was like, I'm going to do a retreat every year until I'm 40, which I did. And so I go up for 8 days. It was a silent retreat, and you get up at 5 a.m. and do these meditations and teachings and stuff. And
you had never done this before. Like, you went from no retreat ever to 8 days of silence.
Yeah. 8 days of silence. I loved it.
Wow.
I loved it. Like, I don't have to say anything, you know.
Holy
And
crap.
that was very, not, it was not easy, but it wasn't particularly hard. It was just like, but it was in a lot of subtle ways. It was a huge investment in myself. And I look back at that time now, and I'm really, really, really glad that I did it, because I can tap into that now. I can go back very quickly to that. It's like riding a bike. I can still remember the sound of the fans in the summer evening, and everybody just sitting and meditating together. And it was like, I can feel it, I can touch it, and it's a great thing to have. So did that change me? I mean, not like a lightning bolt, and not like a, you know, and I drifted back. I stopped meditating, and all of those things, you know, have happened since then. But I've come back to it again, and it was very powerful. Wow. So that was amazing.
Are you not
meeting David Bowie was pretty amazing too.
Yeah.
You know, because he's kind of on a high spiritual level too, as a person. He really is. You know, is.
When you're doing these retreats, you're not allowed to talk at all. Like, even at the end of the day, when you're walking back to your room, it's just no talking.
No talking.
Oh my God. Wow.
I mean, you can ask a question, and half the time I would be so nervous about asking the question that I found myself obsessing about the question, and I felt like I was missing the thing. So then I made this thing where it's like, I'm not going to ask any questions. It's too distracting, because I kept thinking about, okay, I'll ask my question now. Is my question stupid? Da, 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 da. And I was like, what's going on? Are you just going round and round with all this anxiety about the question? Just don't ask the question and just sit and be. It was much better.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I give you a lot of credit.
I'm not afraid of solitude. You know, I'm not afraid of solitude. I love people, and I love my friends, and I love having a laugh. But I'm not afraid of solitude, and it's kind of enriching, and it's something I think it's good. It's a good quality to nurture in yourself, because, you know, the creation of music and practice of music and a lot of that, besides being in a band and all those kinds of things, but the stuff you do in the background, the work, is kind of solitary, and it's good. It's good to be able to just be with yourself, and be comfortable with that, you know.
That's great, man.
Who are you? Why are you here?
Toughest decision you had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Oh God. I don't know. Toughest decision I had to make. I now I'm blank, and I'm thinking about it too much. I think it's probably like, you know, I think when it comes down to things that really involve people and their feelings, and, you know, sometimes things get complicated really quickly, and it's very hard to dissolve them. And did you do the right thing or not? You know, I mean, I find those things are very hard. You know, those things are very difficult. You know. But I don't have anything that really comes up. I'm okay with making decisions. So at a certain point, it's difficult, and then you just make the decision. And, you know, my sister said to me years ago, it doesn't really matter which decision you make. You just need to make one. I was like, okay.
That's good wisdom, man. It is, because like how many things really, really do you do that if you make the quote wrong decision, if there is a wrong, how many of those things actually have a major consequence?
Yeah.
Like unforgivable. Not many.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You know, there's a few unknown, like so this is more humorous, but like, so I was on the road with David, and the phone rang, and we were the day off in Chicago, and he goes, it was a tour manager. It's like, David wants to go to dinner with you tonight. And I'd made these plans. My friend was in the Blue Man Group.
Yeah.
Right. And he'd been in New York. He'd stayed in my apartment. He got the audition. He did it in New York, and then he became a captain, and then he was in Las Vegas, and now he was in Chicago. And we talked about it, and we planned, and I was going to the show to see him. Right. And he was going to come to the Bowie show the next night. And I was like, oh, I can't. I got these plans. I've had them in the book for a long time. Could we do it another time? And then Coco called me. Coco's like David's, you know, fierce protector. And she's like, David really wants to go to dinner with you. And I was like, but I got these plans, Coco, you know. And now I was kind of getting like, you know, I'm just going to live my life like, you know, I go see my friends, and David Bowie's just a person. And then David called me and goes, dinner? And I was like, David, you know, I've made these plans. I explained it. And he was like, oh, okay. And I never went to dinner with David. I went to see my friends, and he never asked me to dinner again. I was like, was that really stupid, Gerry? Did you just do something really stupid? But I don't know. I did something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't go.
Man, on the one hand, it's a tough thing because let's pull David Bowie out of the equation, okay? Let's say it was some important person who is spiritually evolved. In theory, that person would say, hey, man, I get it. This is self-care. Totally cool. Makes sense. Right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully.
Well, you'd think.
I mean, I continue to work with him.
Yeah. I mean, you still can. Yeah. That's a tough call. I mean, it doesn't matter now at all, but I mean, yeah,
so, you know, wait, sometimes you said like toughest decision, and sometimes, you know, tough decisions are about like, it's all about like, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? And I made a decision. I don't know what it would have been. Maybe it would have been like, are we splitting the bill? Or maybe it'd be like, I don't know. You want to produce
dinner,
the next
man.
record or something?
It's just dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think if someone's going to ask you to, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Biggest change. Oh, no, most important lesson life has taught you.
Make your bed.
Like make your bed and lie in it, or like.
So I think, you know, like, and, you know, we all have these days where we're confused and don't know what to do or whatever. But I think, like, I always love it when if I come back off the road, I'm going to take a little tangent here, but like, and I'm looking for something, and I go to the place it should be, and it's there. And not only is it there, it's wrapped up and maybe labeled, not in an OCD kind of way, but it's like in its right place, and care for it, so that when Gerry Leonard came back 3 months later and needed it, it was there. That kind of investment is in yourself, is very respectful, and it's very useful, and it's something you can build your life on. And I say this having my life having crumbled so many times. I'm like, you know, that kind of thing that really, really does help you in your life. So all those little decisions, if you take care and you do it for, you know, do it for the right, and do it properly, and you know, you're actually investing in yourself, and you're taking care, and that can happen with your life, and then your life to other people. That stuff is, you know, that's worth it. So having been careless, I think being careful is good, you know.
Yeah, man, it is.
Is that too much?
No, it's good, man. It's good. Well, you know, what got me thinking was when you said it helps others, and in so many ways, like, you know, my sons in particular are older now. They're 29 and 28. My oldest son called me the other day, and he was having a bad day. And it was funny. I said, and I was having a bad day too. So we talked about it. And I don't know, afterwards, he sent me a little note. He goes, Dad, I really consider myself lucky that I have you to go to. And I felt so good that I did my job, you know. And like, what I was thinking about that is when you said how it affects others. And you don't always see how that affects. That was a situation where I got to see how it affected someone else. And you know, it does affect other people, man. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Listen, I can't thank you enough for all your time. You're a lovely guy. You're a hell of an amazingly talented guy as well. So thank you. Let me tell people, I love people to check you out and get turned on to you. Best way to listen to Gerry's music outside of buying the Reality Live DVD with David Bowie, or listening to the records that he played on with David, which were Heathen, Reality, and The Next Day, or any of the work he's done with Suzanne Vega or anybody else, or Duncan Sheik. Listen to Spooky Ghost, man. It's some beautiful, haunting, very melodic music, man. It's really great. You could find that wherever you buy music, of course, and it's also on iTunes, Spotify, and you can also go to Gerry's website, which is Gerry with a G, Gerry, Gerry Leonard Spooky Ghost. So it's Gerry, Gerry Leonard SpookyGhost.com. Also on YouTube, look up Gerry Leonard. Again, don't forget Gerry with a G. And he's got a YouTube channel there. I'd like you to subscribe to that, and he's going to be posting a lot more cool stuff. He's also on Facebook, Gerry Leonard, and Instagram. It's Spooky Ghost Graham. If you are interested in working with Gerry, either having him do tracks or helping you with production, specifically what his forte is, if you're looking for some distinctive style stuff or some ambient stuff or some sonic landscapes, he's your man, and you can connect with him on the contact tab of his website. Again, that's Gerry with a G, Gerry Leonard Spooky Ghost. And also, same thing, if you're interested in lessons, specifically if you're looking to find your own sound or learn how to put sonic layers together to support the sound you're trying to create, or if you want to just learn the inside secrets to getting ambient sounds, again, go to Gerry Leonard SpookyGhost.com and hit him up on the contact information, the contact app. Also, you've got some new stuff coming out soon. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, besides the fabled third album, which seems to be going on forever, but around it, we all kind of started isolating and stuff. I just started writing, and I call the series viral times, and
dude, that's awesome.
And they're kind of like meditations. Like the pieces, I would try and think about a theme, and either something that I thought was interesting harmonically, or I actually got into this thing of like these bird calls. When I'd be doing my run, I'd be like, hear these bird calls, and I was like, could I take that melodic fragment and put them into these ambient pieces? But I'm hoping to finish. There's a few of those, and then I would record them later in the day, like as an improvisation, and just put it away, kind of like those notes, the artist's way, where they would just kind of like write and not read them. And then I'm coming back and I'm sifting through them, and I'm finding some little pieces that are coming up really well. So I'm hoping to release a few of those, and then keep a building on that. So I have a piece of paper here that says I'm going to finish.
What's the date? What's the estimated date?
Well, it was supposed to be this week, but let's say next week. How about next week?
It'll be finished.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty quick. I think bird calls is very lofty. I think you should do like something less ethereal, like scones, coffee.
Yeah.
Barry's tea. Like you could have a whole palette, not to put a pun on words.
Yeah.
Well, man, I will look forward to that coming out. And seriously, if you haven't checked out Spooky Ghost, great stuff, man. Anything else that I forgot to mention or that you'd like to mention?
No, I'm not, like I say, I love making music, and I'm not great at hawking my wares. But, the albums I think are finished, and I stand by them. And I'm trying to maybe have this Viral Times series come out, and I'll post them on the YouTube channel, and then link them to the site, and then I'll just have them available. I think they're useful, because I was trying to think, everybody's like, oh, we should be all industrious and it's time to finish the record and everything like that. And it's such a travesty, this whole thing. Is kind of like, I can't imagine, taking any glory in like, hey, here's my new stuff, but I was thinking, what's useful? Like, what could be useful? And these pieces could be maybe useful for meditation. Like I like to meditate, and it's silent, but some people like to just have something there. and these pieces are very, you know, they're like being on the ocean, and some of them are 6 minutes or whatever, so they could be a soundtrack to that, and that's the idea of them. They're kind of moods, and they're kind of and then you could use them in the background, or you can listen to them, or you could use them to meditate to, or just sit on a rock, you know.
Man, I think it'd be great because, like, I'm one of those guys. I meditate for like very short periods of time, but if I had something behind me,
Yeah,
I would sit and chill out and have it playing, and you know, it would be a little easier for me to go longer, 8-9 minutes or 6 minutes
yeah,
even.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I think there's tons of people like me that are sort of the same way.
Yeah, so that's the idea behind the pieces, and that I'm trying to keep them on the lighter side, and you know, well, it's what's coming through right now. So I'm trying to just honor that, as they say. But
Good.
so I just need to not edit myself out of existence. That's the problem. You know, we all have that. The big editor of kind of like, you know, why, you know, but I need to just have the confidence to just kind of like let it be, like we were saying, like the earlier spooky ghost stuff.
That was just do whatever you did then. It was literally perfect, man. I mean, whatever state you had to get in then, that was great. It's wonderful stuff, man. I really dug it, you know, very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Hang on one sec. Let me wrap up. Thanks so much for everything, Gerry. I really appreciate you. You're a lovely guy, and I hope to see you down here next time you come. And also check out the Bowie celebration, man. Who's on that with you? Kevin Armstrong and
Kevin Armstrong was on it last time. Carmine Rojas,
right.
Alan Childs on drums, Mike Garson on piano, and then we'd Sass Jordan, we'd Corey Glover, we'd Mr. Hudson in England, we had Joe Sumner, great singers.
Great,
you know,
great musicians.
And next year might be a slightly different cast. You know, Earl has done it. Yeah, Bernard Fowler's.
Yeah,
you know,
right
all
on.
Great people.
Well, thank you, and I hope to see you down here next time you're here.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Please go check out Gerry Leonard's music. Again, it's Gerry Leonard, Spooky Ghost. Check out all the three. He's got, I know he said two, but he's got another third record that's Gala's, the movie there. All three of them are great, man. Very good vibes. Really good stuff he's putting out. And if you need to get a hold of Gerry for tracks or production or for lessons or guidance on getting a sound, hit him up and on GerryLeonardSpookyGhost.com on the contact tab. And most important, especially nowadays, more than ever, first of all, I just want to thank all the first responders out there again. And don't forget that happiness is a choice. So please choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everyone. I'm out. Gerry, thank you so much for everything, brother.
My pleasure.